informational webinar board meeting. This is in compliance with the Governor's Executive Order, NOR 2920, in response to the County Public Health Order. Our boardroom will be closed to an audience for tonight's meeting. However, you are members of the public are encouraged to attend via Zoom. The Board of Education of the Livermore Valley Joint Unified School District is convening an open session. It is 1907 hours. This is our February 2nd regular board meeting of the Livermore Valley Joint Unified School District. Please note that the meeting format continues to be an evolving process, something that we're all becoming accustomed to. And so we'll be debriefing following the meeting about the meeting format in the event that modifications need to be made. So we thank everyone for your patience, and we're trying to make the accommodations as we can. Thanks for your understanding. Be advised, these board meetings are televised on local channel 28, Tri-Valley TV, on Wednesday and Saturday evenings, and Fridays, Monday, Friday, and Saturday mornings. We're going to begin this meeting with our flag salute. So if you'd like to join us, please do so. Ready to begin? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. For those who may have an agenda, I'll occasionally give the agenda item number, kind of where we're at. If you're able to see that, I'm not sure. So we're at 3B. This is closed session action. Any actions that we take in closed session, we report out. And so with that, I'd ask our clerk, Ms. Prusso, to report out any actions taken.
Mr. President, there were no actions taken during closed session.
Thank you. This is the regular meeting of the Board of Education for the Livermore Valley Joint Unified School District. Our primary focus is on the education of students within our jurisdiction. For this meeting, you, our members of the public, have been given the opportunity to share information remotely, to voice your ideas and concerns regarding matters within the jurisdiction of this public agency via the processes outlined on our LVJUSD website regarding public comment and formal board correspondence. Our process to submit comment cards was published on our website on Friday, January 29th, with detailed information and instructions. Indicated a deadline of 1600 hours, 4 p.m., February 2nd, to submit your comment cards for the board. If you've submitted an online comment card for an item not on the agenda, speakers will be called on during section 8.1. This is communication from the public. Each speaker is limited to one card for their comment. You're given a maximum of 3 minutes, and we'll time that on this end. And you'll be granted the ability to unmute and turn on your camera while sharing your comments. And we have our producers on the back end will facilitate that. If you've submitted an online comment card for an item that is on our agenda, when you're called on, please following the board's discussion on each designated agenda item. Again, each speaker will submit just one card for each agenda item that you'd like to speak to. If that's the case, you'll be given a maximum of 3 minutes for your comments, and speakers will be granted the ability to unmute at that time and turn on your camera so we can see you while you're sharing your comments. When you get to about the 2-minute, 30-second mark, I might make a comment about 30 seconds, and that's simply to give us 30 seconds notice. Excuse me. In the event that someone missed the deadline for submitting an online comment card, they may still email the board via the formal written correspondence link that is always on the website. We'll automatically receive it, and we can summarize as part of the next public board meeting, which is going to be on February the 16th. And just a reminder, these meetings are televised on Channel 28, again, Tri-Valley TV, Wednesday and Saturday evenings at 7 p.m., and on Monday mornings at 10 a.m., Friday and Saturday mornings at 9 a.m. Moving to Section 4, this changes to our agenda. Excuse me. I'd ask our Superintendent, Dr. Kelly Powers, if there's any changes.
Thank you, Mr. President. We have 2 changes to the agenda to share this evening. We've received multiple pieces of correspondence after the agenda was published on Friday. And we've waived the policy deadline of 4 p.m. the day before the meeting to allow for all pertinent correspondence to be included in tonight's board clerk summary. We've also accepted formal board correspondence through 4 p.m. today. Copies of the additional correspondence have been provided to each of you, and they're summarized and included in our board clerk's report and summary. Secondly, there was a typo on the attachment for information discussion item 9.1, transition to in-person learning criteria. The word contract should read contact tracing. A corrected copy has been provided to you for reference, as well as a newer, more eye-catching version of the checklist, complete with color and graphics, as enhanced by their community engagement department.
Thank you very much. So let's move right into our recognitions, and I believe we have a very well-deserved one for some of our healthcare professionals.
Certainly, thank you. This is a very special time for us to acknowledge our LVJUSD Health Services team. It's my absolute pleasure on behalf of our board and our entire LVJUSD staff to honor and recognize some of these hardworking and dedicated staff members in our district. I'll introduce our health services team, consisting of school nurses, Carolyn Rojardio, who's also our COVID-19 liaison, Julie Howard, Kat Arthur, Laura Curran, Shelley Casey, and Jennifer Daly. Our health techs, Nola Reshton, Kim Adams, Denise Roberts, who's recently taken a different position at Granada, and newly hired Annabelle Miller, as well as our benefits specialist from our Human Resources Department, Danita Calgo. Before we have a little video, I'll just give you a little bit of a background. Our nurses have always done incredible work keeping our students safe, checking on their health throughout the year, being there for medically fragile students as well as students with allergies and special conditions, and helping us with any kinds of our testing that we need to keep everybody healthy. But when we shifted to distance learning last March, our health services team particularly sprang into action, and they were an integral part in even ways we had not imagined, providing essential resources during this time of challenge. They are the direct link to our county health department, and they provide important data and information that often changes daily. They've interpreted guidance, they've written guidance, and they equip our families and staff with COVID-19 health protocols and practices. Their knowledge and their expertise are an invaluable resource and support system. Behind the scenes, they're working tirelessly to ensure the safety of our students and staff, and by extension, our entire community. Thankfully, we can always call on their medical expertise and experience, and I actually do call on them 24/7 pretty much, and they always answer the call. They collaborate and contribute, and they do so to help us make the best health and wellness decisions possible. Whether they're designing and teaching health and safety protocols, distributing thermometers, providing guidance for hybrid graduation last year, our athletic conditioning or our small learning cohorts, or setting up COVID-19 testing stations and helping us administer the PSAT, they continually position us to give us our best while keeping students and staff safe. As we get ready to host, hopefully, vaccination clinics or pods in the future, they're ready to help and activate on a moment's notice. So I'm very proud and honored to recognize them this evening. We want to thank them for their unwavering commitment, their hard work, their can-do attitude, and their dependability. Thank you to our nurses. Let's enjoy a special recognition.
Very nice.
So we're smiling underneath our masks, and we thank you. It also made me tear up because truly their jobs have become so critical. They're lifesavers. So thank you from the bottom of our hearts.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that, Carolyn. All righty, thank you.
For our next recognition, it's actually Sunset Elementary School's turn, and so we'll ask Tom Jones, the very proud principal of Sunset Elementary, to virtually recognize and honor a particularly hardworking staff member who brings joy to children's lives. And while we're waiting, I'll just add, this is Louise Simon. She's our library media specialist. And years ago, I worked with her at Arroyo Mocho. And we used to actually call her the fairy god princess of libraries, because she would come to everyone's rescue if you needed a certain book or needed children to have access to something for a project. And our students always wanted to be in her presence and in the library. There he is. I see
There's
Mr.
Mr.
Jones
Jones.
now.
Message that books are gifts. Mrs. Simons regularly uploads her read-alouds to her Schoology page and maintains a virtual classroom complete with her own Bitmoji and clickable links. And all this is done to engage our students, continue to build a love for books and for reading, and to provide a sense of normalcy in an otherwise not so normal world. Mrs. Simons' positive impact at Sunset extends beyond our library. Offering support to her colleagues is the norm. This year, for example, she helped a first grade teacher develop a system to track her simple fluency readers, which are sent home and then later collected so that they could be used for small group instruction virtually. Another teacher was able to access, with her help, online digital components of our benchmark advanced language arts curriculum to support a student that was struggling and has a learning disability. Mrs. Simons additionally serves as our webmaster, and she has an eye for design and layout and is extremely prompt regarding updates, including posting photographs celebrating our student diversity and their engagement with distance learning. Having a comprehensive web page during distance learning is a necessity, and having a webmaster who's thoughtful, timely, and creative is an asset. I'd like to leave you with a narrative, in Mrs. Simons' words, of the power of books and connection, because it serves as a perfect exemplar of why Mrs. Simons is being recognized this evening. I've had several great interactions with students and parents. One family, recent immigrants to the United States, told me she and her husband were unsure how to judge books that were safe for her third grade son to read. One of my frequent users of Curbside Pickup, he's almost done reading the I Survived historical fiction series. Upon talking with the student and mom, I'm going to put an extra book of different genres in his package for him to try each week. We talked about reading more than the first chapter to give it a chance, talking to his parents about things he's unsure about in the book, giving me feedback on what he thought about them, if it was too easy or too hard, if he liked it. All things that library media specialists do when they see our students in person. Indeed, we are truly grateful to have Mrs. Simons as our keeper of books and builder of minds. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
We're going to ask for a short
I'm
break.
gonna go ahead and, we're going into section 6, and this is our student board member reports. So I know we have Bobby Cepeda and Michaela Esposito on standby. We're gonna go ahead and take a really short 5-minute break, and we're gonna let our tech folks, they need to make a switch over to get the audio right. So it is 19:22 hours, and we're gonna break for 5 more minutes. So we'll go ahead and, we're on live camera and somewhat audio. We'll take a quick break. Okay, we're coming back at 19:26, and right off the bat here, we're gonna do our student board member report, which is 6.1. They're doing it remotely, so I understand that our student board members are participating virtually, so the first one I'd like to call tonight is Bobby Cepeda. He's our representative from Granada High School, presents as our report.
Oh, you guys hear me?
Hello.
Good afternoon, Board President Bueno, members of the board, Superintendent Bowers, and Cabinet. As of lately, Granada has just passed the midway point for the trimester. Students have taken or have started to take midterm assignments and tests for some classes. Granada students are also slowly adjusting to the new routines with the new Wednesday schedule. Not many of us are the biggest fans of Wednesdays, but we're trying our best to get used to it. With the news of students possibly going back to in-person learning next trimester, some students are excited, some are not so excited, and some are curious on how the plan is going to roll out. Besides all of that, this month is probably going to be the most eventful one for Granada students this year. Granada's ASB leadership have decided to have a substitute event for homecoming called Stay at Homecoming. You might ask what's going to happen during this event. Well, instead of having football games, skits, and dances, our main focus will be fundraising for local businesses using a program called Snack Race, which reaches out to members of the community, asking if they would be willing to donate. With this donated money, ASB will cover the cost of items purchased by students at those businesses. It's still unknown what Livermore businesses will be involved, but we hope to get as many as we can. Students are also continuing old traditions like homecoming royalty, senior favorites, having a rally video, and having shirt designs for each class. Even though this is not our ideal homecoming, we're actually glad to have come up with the substitution that we can still have fun with. With Stay at Homecoming going on, many clubs are having fundraisers and events of their own. Granada's Interact Club is having their annual Coin Wars, which helps fundraise money for Interact international and community projects. Granada's Asian American Club is having a Zoom meeting on the 10th where students can listen to Bay Area authors discuss diversity and representation in literature. And lastly, Granada's Health Care Educators Club is bringing attention to Dating Violence Awareness Month by holding a raffle that all students can partake in. This concludes my board report. Thank you everyone for listening, and like always, go Mats.
Thank you, Bobby. Appreciate the report. And we're going to switch now with a small delay to Livermore High School and Michaela Esposito to give us the rundown for the Cowboys.
Can you all hear me?
Hello, yes, we can hear you. Hi, good evening.
Sorry for the delay. It was taking a bit of time to load. I was getting a bit nervous too. But good evening, Board President Bueno, members of the board, Superintendent Bowers, and Cabinet. The newly revised Wednesday schedule was implemented on January 20th, and so far both students and teachers have managed to adapt to it. Many teachers use the period as a study hall where students can complete work during class, or other teachers utilize the time to teach additional coursework that was cut for time in previous classes. Our LHS students have been very busy over the last month with many new events in progress. The last day to register for the Space Odyssey was January 29th, and the showcase will open virtually on March 15th. This event is a great opportunity for students to showcase their love for science and engineering to our community. The Livermore Lions Club is holding its annual high school speech contest on March 6th, in which students will give a 10 to 15-minute speech on the topic distance learning pros and cons, and winners will receive cash prizes. Middle college applications are now open for fall 2021, with the LVJUSD Information Night being held on February 3rd. AP exam registration for trimester 2 classes is now open until the 19th, and College Board is currently reporting that 2021 AP testing will be in person, but it's also subject to change. The LHS Drama Club presented their virtual winter showcase on January 23rd, in which students had the opportunity to showcase their talents. The LHS cast of Belonging Hands Off won first place for their performance in the statewide 2020 to 2021 California Educational Theater Association's High School Theater Festival Digital Productions category. This is a huge honor, and we are very proud of our LHS theater program. The LHS Wellness Center has also launched a new series called The 5 Languages of Affection and have been promoting it on social media and CBNN. This series allows students to take a quiz to determine their love language, and this information helps them in forming relationships and better understanding their social emotional wellness. Youth Mental Health First Aid Training for Parents is also being held February 27th and March 27th, and this training helps parents identify, understand, and respond to symptoms of mental illness in youth. On January 20th, 3 LHS seniors were recognized by the Rotary Club of Livermore as Rotary Outstanding Students for their academic achievements, extracurricular activities, and community service work. These 3 students are Atticus Cummings, Brandon Norton, and myself. And the past month has brought us construction updates on our new LHS sports complex, which is progressing very well, with the structural steel installations well underway. Yesterday afternoon, LHS families were also notified of a change to the LHS administration team, with one of our vice principals, Mr. Avila, accepting the position of our district's Director of Student Services. Mr. Petersdorf has now taken over as the interim vice principal for students with last names G through L, and we wish them both the best of luck. Thank you for your time, and as always, today is a great day to be a cowboy.
Nicely done, Michaela. Thank you. We're going to move into our next section, which is our reports from our employee associations. And I believe we have a representative from our Livermore Education Association, the president, Amy Thompson. We'll have a small transition. Good evening.
Good evening. How are you? Good evening, Board President Bueno, Superintendent Bowers, members of the Board and Cabinet. I am Amy Thompson, the elected president of the Livermore Education Association, the union in Livermore representing teachers, psychologists, speech pathologists, nurses, counselors, and teachers on special assignment. Being elected to represent means that I regularly consult with members through meetings, conversations, and surveys to find out what they think, want, and need. Part of my role as president is to bring their opinions to you, the school board. When I speak at these meetings, I am speaking on behalf of 700 educators in Livermore. Tonight, I would like to report to you that a majority of our members would like to begin large-scale in-person instruction once they have been given the opportunity to be fully vaccinated. I can also report that a majority of our members intend to get the vaccine as soon as it's available. I do not see this as blocking the expansion of in-person instructional opportunities. I see this as a call to action for our school board and our community. Having been told by the superintendent of Alameda County Schools that teachers should start being vaccinated in February, we say it's February. Where are our vaccines? San Joaquin County Schools have announced a plan to vaccinate educators, including dates of vaccinations. Contra Costa County School Boards Association has written a letter to the Board of Supervisors demanding a plan for vaccinating educators. Our community and our school board need to call on the Alameda County Board of Supervisors and Public Health Department to get vaccines to educators as soon as possible in a streamlined structure so we can begin in-person instruction this spring. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and good advice. Do we have any of the other representatives? Okay. Normally we have Denise Avalar. She's president of our CSEA. Kirsty Governors, the acting president of SEIU, and then Rebecca Polychronis is with our confidentials. We're going to move in Section 8. This is our communication from the public. Communication from the public is the time for our public to comment either in writing or verbally on any item that is not on the agenda. We, the board, may listen to the comment, and we may ask our staff clarifying questions, but we will neither discuss nor take action on topics that are not on the agenda, and this is in accordance with the Brown Act. Thank you to those who've completed the online speaker card so that we can share your thoughts and items that were not on the agenda. When it's your turn to speak, I'll call your name, and for everyone else who's watching, there's going to be a slight delay, and thank you for your patience. We're working through this. And it'll invite you to become a panelist. Accept that invitation. That'll allow you to speak up, and then go ahead and camera up, and that'll give us your voice and audio, voice and video. You'll have 3 minutes to share your comments. After completing it, your mic will be muted, and then you'll be returned to as an attendee. So we're going to go ahead and start off with, let's see, we have Sasha Sato, and it's Rosalind Leidick is on deck. Again, my appreciation for everyone's patience on this. We're not professional producers. A lot of professionals working out of their normal comfort zone trying to bring this all to you. So after each speaker, we'll tell you who's on deck, so kind of give you an opportunity. We have Sasha now. Hello, Sasha, you're up.
Can you hear me?
Yes. You're
Okay,
live to go.
Thank you. Good evening, Board President Bueno, members of the Board, Superintendent Bowers, and Cabinet. My name is Sasha Sato. I'm a student at Granada High School. Currently, I'm in Year 2 of the IB Diploma Program. I would like to provide alternatives to the mandatory Wednesday morning instructional time for high school students. I want to clearly emphasize several points. First, enough students do not need extra instructional time that making it mandatory is unnecessary because the costs outweigh the benefits. Changing this halfway through the trimester forces teachers to restructure lesson plans, which makes things more difficult in these already unprecedented times. We already use our instructional time as work time. I would estimate that up to half of my class sessions are independent work time or breakout rooms. And when we work during class, it's often less effective than working on our own because of the strain of video conferencing platforms on computers and the distractions of having a virtual class and having to be logged in. Second, we can't replicate in-person learning with distance learning. In my experience and many of my peers' experience in IB and AP classes, we're now learning through recorded lectures and homework. And in many cases, this is better, given the situation, than synchronous lectures because these frequent technical issues or glitches during meetings cause us to have problems. You can't rewind a teacher. This is very different from in-person learning, but we can't bring things back to how they used to be. Number 3, 30-minute periods are too short for instruction. They don't need to be longer. The 10 minutes at the beginning of a class session are not for instruction. They're for attendance and chat. Students are still arriving. Technical issues need to be addressed. Adding another session is less efficient than extending an existing one. Number 4, flexibility at the lowest levels is essential. Each student should be in class for the amount of time that best works for them, which is a decision that's best judged by that student's teachers. With these 4 points in mind, I want to offer 2 solutions for the district. Number 1, add additional time to existing afternoon required instructional time. This doesn't even have to be 30 minutes because 30 minutes plus 30 minutes is less efficient than 60 minutes. This adding extra time means teachers won't have to rush to finish lessons and leaves Wednesdays free for independent work. Option number 2, make Wednesday periods optional support. This is the best solution in my opinion. It acknowledges and works with all of my 4 points. It does not lead to unnecessary instructional time and acknowledges how much learning is done independently. While 30-minute periods are inconvenient for teaching, they're better for answering questions. Teachers who believe that they can make effective use of 30-minute morning classes can make those support periods required for their whole class, and individual students who are struggling can also be required to attend support without interfering with other schedules. This follows the principle that teachers are best at determining which classes and students require certain amounts of time. I ask that the district reconsider this inefficient and ineffective schedule and instead implement one of these more efficient and effective proposals. Thank you.
Thank you, Sasha. Okay, we're going to move to Rosalind Leidick, followed by Allison McCandless.
Tasha was an efficient speaker, too. She got a lot in 3 minutes.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, Rosalind, go ahead.
Great. Good evening, Board President Bueno, members of the board, Superintendent Bowers, and Cabinet. My name is Rosalind. I'm a senior at Granada High School and an IB diploma candidate, and I'd like to speak on the issue of the recent high school schedule change that resulted in the replacement of student-directed learning with mandatory 30-minute classes on Wednesday mornings. For students in the IB diploma program, such as myself, the challenges of having a full day of school followed by a full night of homework and IB projects were made more manageable by the lack of mandatory class time on Wednesday. The full day of student-directed learning allowed my peers and me to make great progress in our academic journeys in ways that involved working on the 4,000-word extended essay, or scheduling time to work on group projects, or even taking lengthy exams. My peers and I would always look forward to Wednesdays because we saw them as precious blocks of time that we could easily use to finish large projects and get ahead in classes. However, since the implementation of the new Wednesday morning schedule, we have become more and more stressed because we no longer feel that we have enough time to give assignments and projects all the time and effort that they deserve. I understand the desire on multiple fronts to have students spend more time in class with a teacher, and I understand that making yet another schedule change might not be the top priority in light of recent developments in the learning situation for trimester 3. However, these concerns would be mitigated by switching from mandatory Wednesday classes to optional Wednesday support periods. Like Sasha mentioned, it's a simple change requiring no adjustment of the schedule timing, and it would provide support and guidance for students who need it while allowing students juggling multiple demanding projects the time they need to complete them. Using the reinstated Wednesday morning work time that so many of us miss, my peers and I will be able to take more pride in the excellence of our work. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. And now we'll move to Allison McCandless, followed by Palak Gularia.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. You're live, Allison.
Okay. Good evening, Board President Bueno, members of the board, Superintendent Bowers, and Cabinet. I'm Allison McCandless. I'm in Granada High School. I'm a sophomore. So I'm going to be talking about the Wednesday schedule too, as well. I have 3 main issues with it. I like the idea that was earlier proposed about it being not mandatory. The number 1 issue I have is that I need more time to sleep generally. Most teenagers do too. According to Michael J. Brewis, who has PhD, in an article about sleep science, he quotes, biologically teens are programmed to be up and alert later at night and less awake in the morning. That puts their natural biological sleep at odds with social time, particularly on school days. This biological social class for teens puts them especially at risk for sleep deprivation. I'd also like to point out that the effects of sleep deprivation could affect our ability to learn, such as one of the things that it can be is memory issues and concentration issues. And second thing I have with the whole Wednesday thing is that it's another day of having to sit still staring at a computer screen, and I have a really hard time concentrating when class is on computer, and having extra time with class on computer instead of actually like physically working on stuff at my desk makes it harder for me to learn. And my third issue is that I used my Wednesdays a lot for free time and to relieve my stress. The whole pandemic has been really stressful for me. We've had like plumbing issues and stuff going on, and there's like, I don't know, it's just been like a stressful time, and like one of our family's members been sick. I just like having the Wednesdays to de-stress, like read a book, calm down, and then like it'll be better for when I come back. I'll be better and able to learn. So having the Wednesday with classes makes it harder for me to make it through the week without getting stressed out. And that's about it.
Thank you very much. Nicely done, Allison. Now we move to Palak Gularia, followed by Kelsey Sacco. You're
Good
on.
evening, Board President Bueno, members of the board, Superintendent Bowers, and Cabinet. I'm Paula Galeria, a junior at Granada High School. You may have remembered that I was at the last board meeting a few weeks ago advocating against the student schedule change as a part of Students for Social Change. I'm here yet again to remind you all of how important this schedule change really is. Repeatedly, my peers and I have reiterated our frustrations with the constantly changing schedules. Our sleep, emotional stability, grades, and lifestyles are again and again and again being changed on what feels like the whim of our school district. The changing of Wednesdays for our school schedule has unfortunately disappointed many students like myself and those here today. The additional 30 minutes for each class is barely enough to cover any material or activity without assigning it as homework. I find my time wasted only to be left with even more homework without the additional time. Previously, when we only had ACE on Wednesdays, I took the time to finish missing homework, take a break from the stresses of school, and spend time with my friends. Social and breaks for mental health are imperative for students like me, especially during the pandemic, where all our relationships are strained. Now, students are forced to wake up early, attend classes where they are barely taught anything and practice anything, and somehow maintain just a piece of our sanity. I'm not trying to complain about having to wake up early or have more time in school, but the formatting of our schedule can't help but frustrate me. Our school tells us that the early start times are to maintain consistency with how school usually starts. So then how come we don't have mandatory classes starting earlier on Mondays, Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Fridays? If our schools are so pressed for consistency and preparing us for the future, why start with the Wednesdays and not every other day? It's apparent that when we have mandatory classes at 8 on Wednesdays and mandatory classes at 12:20 every other day, that we don't have consistency. I am tired of struggling with school. When we spoke here at the last board meeting, we were hopeful for real change for Granada. When it didn't happen, it just added to the stress. This Wednesday schedule feels nothing more than a slap in the face rather than a sigh of much needed relief. Online school is not a successful method for learners like me, and this change is just going to make this more painful and worse. I am behind on so many assignments, struggling to complete them. I am tired of my voice and opinion not being heard. I'm a student at this school. I take pride in my success and accomplishments, and I'm proud to live in this city. But when speaking out feels futile, it's disheartening and frustrating. I truly hope that you will listen to my voice and so many others. I am desperately asking for your empathy and efforts on this issue. I strongly implore you to consider the numerous examples brought up by my peers today
20
and at the
seconds.
last board meeting. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And now we'll go to Kelsey Sacco, followed by Russell Atkins.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, you're on. Go ahead.
Good evening, Board President Bueno, members of the board, Superintendent Bowers, and the cabinet. My name is Kelsey Sacco. I'm a senior at Granada High School, and I would like to bring up the introduction of the mandatory Wednesday instructional time. I'm going to touch on my concerns on how it was implemented in the first place and offer some alternatives to the current Wednesday schedule. To start off, I believe that the use of the thought exchange is not an appropriate way to gauge parent and staff teacher opinion of the Wednesday schedule change initially. The survey was not widely or properly publicized to the students specifically. Personally, I did not even know it existed until it was sent in the survey when choosing between the morning and afternoon schedule for Wednesday classes. Additionally, the thought exchange did not even directly address the Wednesday schedule change. It simply asked, quote, what is going well with distance learning and what can we do to improve, end quote. I believe that that primarily the opinion of the student and teacher population should be properly accounted for when making a change that directly impacts our schooling. I am also concerned that a vocal minority of parents and guardians push for this change in particular. Of course, it is important for parent-guardian input to be taken into account for any changes in our students' schooling, but if parent-guardian opinion is the primary driving force for the changes that the school district implements, it is a definite concern for students. Now I'd like to move on to some of the fundamental problems with the new Wednesday learning. First off, for most classes, especially high school classes, a 30-minute period is simply not enough time to do anything productive. It is enough time to talk about any announcements or assignments coming up, but not much else. Secondly, many teachers use Wednesday time in a way that is most productive for their specific class. Personally, 2 of my teachers use Wednesday
to give exams that take longer than a normal class time and offer support if needed. I would imagine the changes disrupted an already established routine for more than just these two teachers. Before moving into changes that would be a good compromise, I want to mention that it is student mental health, physical health, and academic success being directly impacted by these changes. For many students, including myself, Wednesday provided a much-needed break from online classes that hurt our eyes, backs, and morale. Personally, I developed tension headaches, dry eyes, and a sore tailbone within the first 2 months of online learning. Not to mention the stress and mental health problems exacerbated by returning to school during the pandemic. It is also not a stretch to assume that some students use Wednesdays to take additional hours of work, considering the pandemic has affected the income of many families tremendously. Obviously, most students would like to go back to the original schedule, but I would implore you to look into the options presented by my peers today, and thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it. And now we're going to move to Russell Atkins, followed by Cheryl Coman.
Good evening, Livermore. I just wanted to let everybody know that
If
I
you
will
could
not
hang on,
address you.
if you could hang on, Mr. Atkins, hang on 1 sec, just so we can get your audio good. Are you on camera? There we go.
No.
You're coming on. Okay, Mr. Atkins, go ahead.
Good evening, Livermore. I just wanted to let you know that I will not be addressing anybody on that board as president or superintendent or any praise that I should make you think that you're almighty high up on that board, because you've done nothing positive for my kids over the last year. I've also want you to know that I just left my job vaccinating people as fast as we can possibly do it. And the CEO of my company, Greg Adams, has let the state know that at the rate in which we get the vaccine, public, please listen to me, the rate in which we're getting this vaccine, it will take 7 years to vaccinate just Kaiser members. So, with that being said, I do not trust you. I do not believe you. I do not think one thing you're talking about, sending out messages to my friends and emails saying that we'll be back on the 12th or the 10th or whatever it is you want to say. You have no plans to get my kids back in school. You continue to tell me things, and I speak to people credible within your district that tell me that there are not the human resources, which means teachers and the unions are not on board with getting back in school until they're vaccinated, and maybe not even after then. While we continue to go to work, while our kids continue to be exposed, while our kids continue to be belittled at school, failing classes, and everything else, and you sit there and have the nerve to not put our kids in school when high school students are sitting there telling you, this is not working for me. I'm going to go into one more quick story, and I hope you don't interrupt me, because my grandfather was drafted in World War II at the age of 17. He got a Purple Heart and a Bronze Star because he was shot, and he saved numerous people's lives before he was discharged honorably and lived a fulfilling life. But there was one thing at the age of 74 years old that he wanted to do. My sister graduated high school in Australia and got to walk across the strait at Australia as a foreign exchange student. And he begged us at the age of 74, there was one thing my grandfather wanted to do for the rest of his life. After everything that he had done for his country, he wanted to do one thing, and that was walk across his high school stage graduation. So you remember that. Now, for 2 years, you have students, seniors, that will never get their high school graduation. You are denying that from them. And I don't even have a senior. You're denying that from them as you sit up there in the board behind there because you don't want conflict. You spout lies about this as an airborne virus. Chris doesn't even know what he's talking about if he's trying to keep people from getting an airborne virus in our schools. Again, I'll say this again. Shame on every one of you. Shame.
Thank you, Mr. Atkins. And we're going to move to Cheryl Coman or Choman, I'm not sure. You could clarify that for us, please. Followed by Dave Von Heater. Hello.
Hi there. Good evening, Board President Bueno, members of the school board, Superintendent Bowers, and Cabinet. My name is Cheryl Schumann. I am a mother of 4. I have a master's degree in public health, specifically in epidemiology. I have 2 decades of experience in healthcare. I have been a health educator since the year 2000, in preventative mental health care since 2012, and specializing in youth mental health for the last 2 years as the founder of Generation Kindful, a nonprofit that works to prevent negative mental health outcomes. The COVID-19 pandemic has caused devastating issues in the lives for people around the globe. The fear and insecurity it has brought in its path leaves anxiety, depression, and isolation all around us. From ages 8 to 80, death by suicide has increased at an alarming rate. Suicide, ideations, child abuse, child depression and anxiety, gang homicides, missing and exploited children, all exploding in numbers. With the uncomfortable new reality of working from home, the financial strain, unemployment, food scarcity, distance learning challenges, technical issues, and the stress of day-to-day life, we are pushed past our mental and physical limits as parents, and we've become overwhelmed. This is called chronic toxic stress. Children are not immune to this toxic stress. My own children are becoming irritable, complaining of headaches, eye strain, digestive upset, and are becoming physically aggressive. The worst part, in my opinion, is that we are changing the relationship dynamic between families, and some families are not getting out alive, literally. Are we really doing enough for their mental health, or are we still pushing grades in some ludicrous idea that they can self-manage through distance learning and pretend we're building grit? The Department of Ed is still asking for the same quality of work without the same level of care. Does this seem like a quality of education to you? This growing emotional and negative mental health epidemic is something that we cannot ignore. Our children, who will be out of school indefinitely, will continue to fall behind academically, grow despondent, and be left emotionally dysregulated. That will make their future very difficult, if not impossible. While the psychosocial support network of the school counselors is finding creative ways to be interactive, we're still failing our children in emotional intelligence and regulation. So I suppose my question here is, when does mental health take a front seat to you? What is the actionable plan to ensure no child is hopeless and running out of reasons to live? I encourage you to take a look at some of the robust EI and ER programs like mine and others that can save your children. Because the truth is, we are losing them at alarming rates, and they are not dying from coronavirus. This enormous wave of negative mental health outcomes is only just the beginning. I ask you to please focus on their future by changing the now. Put children's mental health on the forefront. Put them in the classroom. Begin to construct a comprehensive plan for tomorrow and next month and next year. Because I'm growing mentally tired myself from holding crying mothers and pleading with children not to take their own lives. Thank you. I am for hire.
Thank you. And now our last speaker is Dave Von Heater.
Can you hear me there?
We can hear you, Dave.
Great, thanks, Ms. Bueno. Good evening, Board President Bueno, members of the board, Superintendent Bowers, and Cabinet. As you know, I'm the chairman of our district's Parent Club Information Council, PCIC for short. And on January 19th, in collaboration with Community Engagement, we hosted a live forum that we called LVJUSD Leadership Live. I want to take a moment and publicly thank President Bueno, Dr. Bowers, Mr. Van Schack, Mrs. Rambo, Mrs. Rojardo, and Mrs. Thompson for their time, energy, and contributions to this forum. After the forum, in particular after the recording was posted on the district's YouTube page, I received a lot of positive feedback from many people in the community that appreciate hearing real-time information straight from those leaders with the facts, without the filters of neighborhood hearsay or social media gossip. This was our primary objective. The secondary objective was simply to remind people that there are humans on both sides of an email, both passionate about student outcomes, and we shouldn't lose sight of that. I hope that too was successful, but only time will tell. And speaking of social media, I'm sure the board is aware of a petition that started circulating around a day or so after our forum, via Facebook primarily, is my assumption. After more than a week, it seemed to have topped out around 800 signatures. What is interesting is that recently an LVJUSD teacher had posted a heartfelt plea asking for support, patience, and understanding in regards to comments on social media that were very negative towards the teachers union and by extension, teachers throughout our district. And within approximately 24 hours, that post had around 1,200 supportive reactions and comments from our community and continued to grow. Trustees and administration, please remember that Livermore loves its teachers, nurses, aides, principals, and many other district employees. We want to keep them safe. We want them to succeed, as their success is our students' success. We know distance learning is a temporary safety measure and that it isn't the ideal situation for many. But many of us also know how hard you're working and that while there are always areas to improve, there are success stories out there because of parents and teachers and administrators working together. And no matter what our state of learning looks like in the coming months, the strength of our teachers will be at the center of it and critical to its success. Please continue to make sure any plans have their support. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That concludes that section, so we're going to move into 8B, which is correspondence. Formal written correspondence to this Board of Education shall be acknowledged if received by the board or in the superintendent's office by 4 p.m. the day before the meeting. Formal written correspondence received after the cutoff time will generally be acknowledged at the following meeting. Electronic communications received via the Livermore Valley Joint Unified School District website, and you access it at a formal written correspondence to the Board of Education link with all fields completed and verified. That'll be treated as formal written correspondence. With that being said, I'd ask our clerk, Ms. Prusso, if there is any correspondence, and if so, if you'd please summarize.
Mr. President, we have quite a number of correspondences, so I've asked my fellow trustees to help me read the summaries, and we'll begin with Ann White.
Here we go. Robin Anachario, appears she's a parent of 2 in Livermore, shared concerns about support hubs not being offered equitably at each site. She urged our board to mandate that all schools offer support hubs at each grade level for at-risk students. In a follow-up board correspondence, Mrs. Anachario also thanked Dr. Bowers for contacting her and answering many of her questions. She acknowledged that everyone is working hard toward the same goal and stated she is appreciative of everyone's diligence. Jean Farley Rogers, retired teacher and grandparent, urged our board to vote to adopt Governor Newsom's plan to reopen schools for TK to 2nd grades in mid-February. Karen Marguth, Livermore Valley staff member and International Baccalaureate coordinator at Mitchell K-8 school. Ms. Marguth informed our board that regarding Joe Mitchell's 5-year recent IB evaluation visit, the school's IB program received 23 commendations. She shared with our board each of the commendations by standard. Lisa Dayton, another Livermore parent, urged our board to reopen schools after spring break. She noted the vaccine is coming soon to Alameda County. Todd Ward, a parent, demanded that our board reopen schools in Livermore. Tammy Schnapp, a Livermore parent, urged our board to consider writing a letter to governor advocating for our district at the state level. Ms. Schnapp attached a letter from the Bay Area district as an example. Tiffany Godfrey, Livermore parent, thanked our board and superintendent for the information that were shared during the live forum. She posed several questions regarding our opening plan. Ms. Godfrey strongly encouraged our board to open for schools, fight for what is right, protect our employees, and get students back to school. Vanessa Guccio, Livermore parent, implored our board to keep up the hard work of continuing to plan to reopen the schools at all grade levels when our county moves to the appropriate tier. She asked the board to fight for our children to get them back in the classroom with their peers and teachers. Nobella Baba, a parent, urged our board to send out a survey to be able to put class rosters together. She noted there's no reason not to move forward with the district's approved safety plan to reopen. Lisa Valverde, parent, noted that her family will continue with distance learning. She is concerned that families choose to continue with distance learning may experience a change in teachers. Ms. Valverde urged our board to be aware of all students when making decisions about changing classes so late in the year. She also is opposed to reopening schools without teachers receiving a vaccine. Anne Marie Rosenberg, a parent, shared a New York Times article relating to the rising mental health issues kids are facing amid the pandemic and school closures, including suicides. She urged our board to reopen our schools and put kids first. Katie Linhart, a Livermore parent, inquired as to what meetings she can attend to for information on plans to improve the quality of education available to students in Livermore. Erica Badger, a Livermore parent, shared her disappointment that she did not receive a response from an email she'd previously written. Ms. Badger voiced her concerns with the distant learning schedule and the minimal amount of time that her children spend with their teachers. She praised her children's teachers for all their hard work when they are in class. Alameda County Office of Education, Karen Monroe, superintendent, reported that Livermore filed a positive certification of its 2020-21 first interim budget report based on Alameda County Office of Education's review and analysis. The first interim budget accurately reflects the financial status of our district. Further, ACOE recognized the strong leadership of the Livermore Board and Superintendent. ACOE has asked our district to review, identify, formally approve, and implement any necessary reductions in the 2021-22 year and incorporate these into the district's second interim budget report. ACOE encourages our district to closely monitor cash flow throughout the fiscal year. Superintendent Monroe expressed appreciation to our district staff, the board, and the community for their continued diligence and hard work. Jennifer Walker, a Livermore staff member, informed our board that she is strongly opposed to vaccines for COVID-19. She stated they are dangerous, unreliable, and believes that they were rushed out to protect against a virus that has a 99% survival rate. Carolyn Reggiardo, Livermore school nurse, thanked our board, superintendent, and cabinet members for the continued dedication to the health and safety of our staff and students. Ms. Reggiardo reported that Livermore has had 1,000 new cases of COVID-19 since January 1st. With that, Ms. Reggiardo stressed that it is the goal of Livermore to get students safely back to school. Alyssa Lopez, staff member, urged our board to support staff members to be fully vaccinated prior to returning to the classroom for in-person classroom learning. Jennifer Zhao, Livermore staff member, urged our board to support staff members to be fully vaccinated prior to returning to the classroom for in-person classroom learning. Allison Noble, Livermore staff member, urged our board to support staff members to be fully vaccinated prior to returning to the classroom for in-person classroom learning. And I pass it on to you.
Carol Millenbeck, staff member, urged our board to support staff members to be fully vaccinated prior to returning to the classroom for in-person learning. Tara Lutz, staff member, urged our board member to support staff members to be fully vaccinated prior to returning to the classroom for in-person classroom learning. Dana Thompson, staff member, urged our board to support staff members to be fully vaccinated prior to returning to the classroom for in-person learning. Cindy Durov, staff member, urged our board to support staff members to be fully vaccinated prior to returning to the classroom. Gina Pisteri, staff member, urged our board to support staff members to be fully vaccinated prior to returning to the classroom. Heidi Pittman, staff member, urged our board to support staff members to be fully vaccinated before returning to the classroom. Gina Hatch, staff member, urged our board to support staff members to be fully vaccinated prior to returning to the classroom. Susan Lai, staff member, urged our board to support staff members to be fully vaccinated before returning to the classroom. Donna DeRego, staff member, urged our board to support staff members to be fully vaccinated before returning to the classroom. Mary Fernandi, staff member, urged our board to support staff members to be fully vaccinated prior to returning to the classroom. Evan Hamilton, staff member, urged our board to support staff members to be fully vaccinated prior to returning to the classroom. Jennifer Ackerman, staff member, urged our board to support staff members to be fully vaccinated. Lisa Phillips, staff member, urged our board to support staff members to be fully vaccinated before returning to the classroom. S.G. Booth, staff member, urged our board to support staff members to be fully vaccinated before returning to the classroom. Michelle Perry, staff member, urged our board to support staff members to be fully vaccinated before returning to the classroom. Nanette Hunter, staff member, urged our board to support staff members to be fully vaccinated before returning to the classroom. Laura Lessieur, staff member, urged our board to support staff members to be fully vaccinated prior to returning to the classroom. Lisa Rosare, staff member, urged our board to support staff members to be fully vaccinated before returning to the classroom. Clarissa Adis, staff member, urged our board to support staff members to be fully vaccinated before returning to the classroom. Clarissa Adis, staff member, urged our board to support staff members to be fully vaccinated prior to returning to the classroom. And then the following correspondence was received after the agenda was published.
Amy Pesavento, district parent, supports students returning to the classroom for all grade levels. She believes that students can return to in-person learning and that it can be done in a safe manner, practicing good hygiene. Lynette Lopes, district parent, encouraged our board to open our schools as soon as the county and state give the green light for the well-being of Livermore students and families. Susan Monkner, district parent, voiced her disappointment in our school board for taking a passive response to addressing the need to have students return to classrooms for in-person instruction, in spite of the signs and recommendations from the experts. Colleen Romagna, district parent, forwarded to our board a resolution that's available for parents to sign, called Resolution that Youth Sport Competition is Essential During the COVID Pandemic in the State of California. She urged parents to consider supporting the cause. Anna Cleary, district parent, thanked our board for all the hard work that's been done ensuring our students' education has not been neglected during the pandemic. Ms. Cleary has specific questions regarding the possible change in teachers for her children when in-person learning is implemented and the harm it may cause. Christina Hildebrand, president of Voice for Choice Advocacy, Inc., states that the organization sincerely objects on a legal, scientific, and religious basis to any COVID-19 vaccine requirement, and asked our district not to require the COVID-19 vaccine as a prerequisite for in-person education at this time or in the future. Heather Boyd, district parent, asked our board, cabinet, and principals to be leaders, step up and support the kids who want to return to in-person learning in March of 2021. Lori Garius, district parent, voiced her concerns regarding the recent survey. She asked what the benefit would be for kids going back to school so late in the school year. Ms. Garius noted her concern for her child possibly not having his amazing teacher for the rest of the school year. Melissa Martella, district parent, thanked our board and leadership team for their tireless efforts to continue to keep students and teachers safe. Her family loved the district leadership live forum and noted it was very beneficial. Heather Stratton, district parent, urged our board to reopen our school campuses. She strongly feels that our district is largely being guided by the teachers union. Ms. Stratton reminded our board that decisions must be made for the students, not the teachers. Brian Seifering, district parent, has appreciated the consistent communication and considerations regarding school options during the pandemic and has appreciated the adaptability of our teachers in difficult circumstances. He thanked our board for focusing on the safety of teachers, school staff, children, parents, and the community. Mr. Seifering voiced concerns for the possibility of students possibly having a change of teachers so late in the school year. Ann McDowell, district parent, urged our board to follow through with our district plan and allow students who want to return to in-person classroom instruction to do so. Melissa Johnson, district parent, noted that her family has committed to in-person learning. She is hopeful that our district will continue to move forward with plans to reopen regardless of union shifting demands. Lisa and Patrick Smith, district parent, urged our board to continue to choose safety above everything else, based on scientific data and facts of this ever-changing virus. He included a letter to his child's teacher regarding his family's decision for trimester 3.
Terry Sorkin, parent, noted that our students desperately need to return to the classroom. She is hopeful that students will return to in-person instruction in March after receiving the recent email survey. Jim Maloney, Livermore staff member, urged our board to support staff members to be fully vaccinated prior to returning to the classroom for in-person classroom learning. Patricia Gallagher, a staff member, urged our board to support staff members to be fully vaccinated prior to returning to the classroom. Laura Morgan, staff member, urged our board to support staff members to be fully vaccinated prior to returning to the classroom. Kendra Rich, staff member, urged our board to support staff members to be fully vaccinated prior to returning to the classroom. Dana Saindon, staff member, urged our board to support staff members to be fully vaccinated prior to returning to the classroom. Heather Carroll, staff member, urged our board to support staff members to be fully vaccinated prior to returning to the classroom. Diana Albornoz, staff member, urged our board to support staff members to be fully vaccinated prior to returning to the classroom. Emily Waffler, staff member, urged our board to support staff members to be fully vaccinated prior to returning to the classroom. Brene Miladinovich, staff member, urged our board to support staff members to be fully vaccinated prior to returning to the classroom. Julie Sawada, staff member, urged our board to support staff members to be fully vaccinated prior to returning to the classroom. Cheryl Hargreaves, staff member, urged our board to support staff members to be fully vaccinated prior to returning to the classroom. Lori Valenzuela, staff member, urged our board to support staff members to be fully vaccinated prior to returning to the classroom. And Carrie Gnecco, staff member, urged our board to support staff members to be fully vaccinated prior to returning to the classroom for in-person classroom learning.
Thank you, Clerk Prusso and fellow trustees.
Before we go on, can we just have a point of clarification? There's an audience member who doesn't think that their letter was summarized, and so I'd just like to make sure that on page 6, it was number 7. I believe it was what Trustee Wong was reading. Was it Heather Boyd's letter? So that was summarized correctly?
Did you want me to read it again?
Sure, thank you.
Heather Boyd asked our board, cabinet, and principals to be leaders, step up and support the kids who want to return to in-person learning in March of 2021.
Thank you. I thought I'd heard it the first time. I just wanted to make sure. And just to clarify for audience, it's very important to know that the only things that will be published on the agenda have to get before we publish the agenda, which is last Friday. So that'll be published, but anything received afterward, then we try to include. Our policy says that we'll include it if it comes in by 4 p.m. yesterday, but we actually went beyond that and went to 4 p.m. today if it was relevant to this. So just wanted to make sure. But if it's only written to me or to principals, it does not get summarized at the board.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, we're going to move into our discussion items in section 9. And so I'd ask Dr. Bowers if you'd introduce 9.1, please.
Certainly. Thank you, Mr. President. Our next item, I'll ask, excuse my voice, I'm a little hoarse tonight. Mr. Chris Van Schack, our Deputy Superintendent, will present the transition to in-person learning criteria. This is information only, but we are seeking additional board direction to guide next steps.
Thank you, Dr. Bowers. As she mentioned, tonight I would like to provide an update and ask for board direction regarding the safety preparation component of our reopening plan. The purpose of these criteria is to help reduce risk. We recognize that elimination of risk is not possible, not now, perhaps not ever. We do, however, recognize that a number of these criteria help move the needle. Some of them substantially, like masks, some of them less substantially, like passive screening. But all of them in total help us to eliminate some of the risks that students and staff would take once we return them to our school campuses. So we start off, and again, there are 7 criteria. These have been made public on a number of occasions. Some of them come to us as recommendations from the CDC. Some come from the county health department, some come from the state, some come from our own nursing staff. These are a number of things that together in total, again, would create an environment in which we feel confident telling parents that they can send their students and that we can ask staff to return. First, obviously, is our personal protective equipment. This includes masks, face shields, in some cases plexiglass shields for office areas and other public spaces, gowns when necessary, but it's basically the place where we started back in the spring of last year. We have plenty of that at our school sites and in our warehouse for students and staff probably through the next year. We have, in fact, we've loaned on occasion some of our protective equipment to the city when they ran low. So first and foremost, protective equipment. Cleaning and sanitizing, we have the equipment necessary, we have the staff necessary. We have electric hand sanitizers so that students don't have to touch. They get the hand sanitizer directly from a unit. We have the cleaning supplies that are necessary. Again, we have supplies at school sites. We have supplies in our warehouse as backup. And so we feel very confident that we've met our needs in that area. We look at ventilation. This is an important factor. Our HVAC, heating, ventilation, and air conditioning units, essentially what they do is they filter air. They replace air at a rate of about 4 to 6 times per hour in a classroom. This exceeds the CDC recommendation. We have recently installed MERV 13 filters, which is a higher level filter than most schools would have ever placed in their HVAC systems. And so in the last month and a half, 2 months, we've replaced all of our filters with these higher filters. All of our classrooms, all of our office spaces have appropriate ventilation. We recognize that that's a key to reducing the risk of transmission of the disease, is to make sure that the air is circulated frequently. Again, we've exceeded in all of our classroom spaces the CDC requirements in this area. And so again, we feel very confident bringing our staff and our students back into classrooms because we know that they are well ventilated. Number 4, in this case, we feel as though the logistical protocols which are in place for entrance, egress, screening, and distancing are going to provide us with appropriate structures and processes to bring students onto campus, to, in some cases, actively screen them for temperature and symptoms. Arrows in hallways to ensure that traffic is going in the right direction. In lunchrooms, MPRs, seating so that it's spaced out enough that the students have the appropriate distancing between them. This category specifically speaks to all of the processes that must be in place in order for schools to operate in a manner that's going to keep our students and our staff safe. Again, things such as bathroom, keeping one student in the bathroom at a time, making sure the bathrooms are cleaned on a regular basis, making sure classrooms are cleaned at the end of each day, making sure that they're cleaned appropriately, and again, all of the processes and protocols that are necessary for us to operate our schools safely. Again, check mark here. These are essentially the items that are handled at the school site level. And I know Dr. Bowers most recently put out a request for our site principals to find a way to communicate these processes to our students in a way that would be engaging and entertaining. I know we have some responses from some of our principals. We want to share those with the boards just so that you understand that the principals are on top of this. They are eager to get students back. These are real quick 2-3 minute videos, a couple of our elementary schools, and essentially they're trying to portray this information in a way that's engaging to our younger students and help them to remember that really safety in this case is their responsibility. And so I'm going to ask Jeff Warner to go ahead and play a couple of quick videos for the board just so you can see the work that's been done by our site principals to try to create some engaging messages.
Good afternoon, and thank you for joining me. My name is Joe Minier, and I am the proud principal of MSE Smith Elementary School here in Livermore Valley Joint Unified School District. I'm excited today because I get to go over some of the important additions to our school campus that are going to help eventually bring your students back safely. Many parents have requested information about reopening and some of the policies and practices for reopening. So I thought it might be wise to put together a video to show some of the amazing things here on campus. We are lucky. Our campus did receive a full paint and facial update over the last summer, and we're excited to show students that as well. So on top of all of our safety, the beautification of Emma Smith has been amazing. The process to reopen schools may seem like a daunting task. However, I believe strongly that LVJUSD and our school partners are up to the challenge. I'm impressed with all of the things that we have in place, staying within our county guidelines and following the LVJUSD reopening plan. If you're interested in looking at the LVJUSD plan in detail or the distance learning plan, please please visit our school website or district website. It's easily accessible in both of those locations. I would like to thank our school board, our district leadership, school nurses, maintenance and facilities, custodial teams, teachers, staff, and especially you parents for showing patience and grace as we have developed these plans and worked together to safely bring everyone back to school safely. The information I am sharing with you today is current, and we do recognize that as we live in an ever-changing world, especially in the case of COVID-19, it has never been more true that things change. Thank you for watching our video, and we look forward to seeing you soon back on campus.
Nice.
I think we have one more from Ultima. We have plenty coming, but we didn't want to show all.
Thank you, Jeff. So I think the point to be made is, again, there are 7 criteria that we've developed over the last couple of months, and 4 of the 7 criteria really are focused on behaviors that take place at the school sites, and those were identified earlier. And again, we are feeling very confident that in those 4 areas, we're on top of things and we're ready to roll. The 5th area really has to do with screening and testing and contact tracing. And so we began a program last week for employees, and we've recently signed a contract with an organization that's going to help us with testing and tracing of students. And so again, we believe that this is a really essential component of making sure that we have safe schools. And so that's the 5th of the 7, and we feel very, very comfortable with our place now, even though we're at the beginning stages, and so that's 5 of 7. Excuse me. The 6th really has to do with community spread. Just if we go back in time, just to the, right before Thanksgiving, they do a rolling average in our county and in the city. And at that time, we were averaging right around 3.5 new infections, newly infected people per day. So around 3.5 was the rate for Livermore just before Thanksgiving. By the time we got through with the winter break, we were in the high 40s. So we went from 3.4 to around 48. And that is earlier in December, Governor Newsom decided to move the entire state into what they consider to be a deep purple, which is over 8. And again, we were in the 40s. The good news is recently in Livermore and in the county, the number has come down substantially, so much so that on Monday of this week, Livermore is in the mid-teens. And so now we're down, we've gone from the 40s to 16. In order for us to move from purple to red, just in terms of community spread, we are supposed to be below 8 new infections per day on a 7-day rolling average. And so we got to get below 8 for us to feel confident and comfortable that we have community spread under control. What we do know from studying other school districts in other states and even on our own state is that schools tend to mirror the spread of the community. They may not exacerbate it, they probably don't make it better, but they mirror the community. So if the community has out of control COVID spread, that's likely to appear in schools as well. And so for us, we feel as though if we can get the community spread under control, and again, under control, it can be defined in a number of different ways, but most clearly it would be far below the 40s, which we were in early January. Below 8 would at least get us into the red tier. And so that has been a goal of ours, is to manage community spread. We mentioned here the Mask Up for Livermore campaign. We do play a role in that, obviously, by wearing our own masks, maintaining distance, et cetera, et cetera. But community spread, we know that if community spread is under control, it will likely be under control at our schools as well. And finally, the 7th criteria would be vaccine availability for all staff. And this is one that I know brings with it some controversy. In some communities, they're not concerned about vaccines. In other communities, they're very concerned. We feel as though if we are going to provide a safe environment for our employees and for our students, vaccine availability is the 7th and a very important component of that. The good news is the light is appearing at the end of the tunnel. We believe that vaccines are close to us. We are in the next tier. We feel very confident that the county officials, the state officials are going to prioritize educators because they recognize the significant impact that school openings have on the community. And so, again, the 7 criteria, 5 that we feel very confident in, the next 2, community spread, which again is more a matter of what happens outside of our school district than inside, although we do play a role, and then the vaccinations, which also is directed from the outside, and I know our nurses are very eager to step up and be a conduit for our staff in getting vaccines into their arms. And so we are feeling as though we are 2 criteria away from having an environment that's as safe as it possibly can be, given the context in which we live at the moment. And so, again, there's a spectrum. Some people feel very confident going out now, regardless of whether they're wearing a mask or not. And the other end of the spectrum, people feel like they won't be comfortable going out until all students are vaccinated or all children are vaccinated. And so somewhere in the middle of that lies probably a place where we feel comfortable, we feel confident in providing an environment for our students and our staff that we can look them in the eye and say, you're in a place that's as relatively low risk as we can make it. So again, those are the 7 criteria. Feel good about 5. We still have 2 to go. Just to kind of show you a nicer graphic of the reopening checklist that will appear on our website. This meets county, state, and local criteria. And again, it's just a replication of many of the points I just went over, just in a kind of a nicer way and packaged together in a nice little graphic. Information is available for parents on our website. We do have lots of information about not just distance learning, but the criteria involved in our reopening. So again, this is an informational report, as Superintendent Bowers suggested, and I repeated it. We are looking for some board direction in terms of acceptance of these 7 criteria, maybe a refinement of 1 or 2, or an extension of 1, or whatever the board feels comfortable in directing staff toward in terms of making our schools safe so that we could reopen sooner rather than later.
Good? Okay, thanks. All right, I believe we have some public comment cards, right? And so we can go to our public comments and we'll listen to our public comments and we can ask some questions. So let's get my list here. List of folks that put in for it here. Okay, first up, we have Nobella Baba, followed by Sophia Baba. Again, for those maybe just tuning in, there's a small transition while our producers on the back end switch folks over. You're unmuted. Go ahead. Your 3 minutes begin. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening, Superintendent Bowers, Cabinet, and board members. I am here yet again advocating for our kids, which is supposed to be your job. Oh, excuse me. There we go. It's sad that for 11 months, instead of meeting the needs of every child in this district, there was more interest to meet the needs of the union and protect their interest. For months, we were told the union isn't the reason our kids are out of school, that it's just a misconception. But just do a little reading on social media where the union is encouraging people to write this board with emails against reopening schools. You can turn on the news and read any article where unions are pushing back against reopening, which is very concerning to us parents. If the board and district are as eager as we are to get back in person, then we can only deduce based on the union's actions in the media that they are the reason we are still in this predicament and our kids are still at home. The union has been urging staff to request vaccinations prior to returning, knowing this won't be possible in time. I guess teachers in other counties and states must matter less, since many are back in school, some of them even full-time. I'm going to assume that none of these staff members requesting vaccinations shop at Costco, Target, or go to any stores or have any of their kids in extracurricular activities. My family and I were so happy to have received that email and survey last Friday, but I said in the last board meeting, actions speak louder than words. I am cautiously optimistic of the plan being executed, but we've had ample opportunities in the past. Are you going to start opening these campuses in March for kids to finish out their year, or will this be another reason or excuse to keep it closed? Will it be, well, what's the point now? Why disrupt everything with a couple months left? Those couple of months will mean everything to these kids. To see their classrooms for the first time, to see their classmates in the flesh, and to finish out the year in a positive manner since it started out under difficult circumstances. In our district, those of us who want to reopen are called selfish, lazy parents, and careless, and that all we do is complain. That is where the divide was created. I have personally sent several emails to this board offering assistance and have received no response. I'm offering to volunteer my time to help with anything I can. If we felt our kids were made a priority, there wouldn't even be a distrust of this leadership. Does me wanting the best for my kids mean I don't care about teachers? Absolutely not. I've loved every single teacher that my girls have had in this district and have volunteered many hours to help our schools and classes. But I trust the thorough plan that the district has gotten approved to help protect our precious kids and the wonderful teachers. I've heard many people in the district and union say it's just a few loud parents that want this. The recent petition has gotten over 800 signatures in support of reopening. The Facebook post Mr. Von Heater referenced that had 1,200 comments were widely the same people commenting and responding to each other. Lest I forget to mention, many of those folks used that platform to disparage those of us parents who wanted their kids back in school. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And now we'll go to Sophia Baba, followed by Ashley Baldock.
Time, okay?
Hello, Superintendent Bowers, and to everyone on the board. My name is Sophia, and I am a third grader. I have been coming and speaking at these meetings since October, but the last meeting I didn't want to write any more speeches. I felt like no one was listening to me or what I need. When we received the email on Friday, me, my parents, and my sister Olivia read it together, and I felt so happy I cried a little. I had dreams that night of being in my classroom for the first time this entire year. I didn't even know what my third grade classroom looks like. I bet Miss Oden has the best looking classroom because she is creative. I wish that this happened a long time ago, but I am just happy that it's finally happening, even if it's for a short time before school ends. I want to end my third grade year better than it started. To those of you here fighting for kids like me to be back in my classroom, thank you. My parents and my teacher have worked so hard to make things as fun and as normal as possible. But there's nothing like walking into a classroom that smells like pencils and finding your seat next to a friend while learning. Staring at a screen in my room just isn't the same. I know everyone has worked hard to make it safe for us to go back. I have my backpack filled and ready for my first day of school and class this year. Everyone deserves a choice, and I choose being in my class with my teacher and friends. Thank you.
Thank you, Sophia. And now we'll transition to Ashley Baldock, followed by Liz Boyson. Hello.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Go ahead, please.
Okay, great. Good evening, President Bueno, members of the board, Superintendent Bowers, and Cabinet. My name is Ashley Baldock, mother of 2 elementary age students in the district. So here we are, 11 months after this whole mess started, and we are only a small step closer to getting our kids back in school. 11 months. Why is it that only the private schools can figure out how to get their kids back to in-person learning? One of the great things historically about Livermore has been the strong public school system. The board and the district cannot afford to turn a deaf ear to all parents and students' needs. This will force parents into charter schools or private schools, which will be the beginning of the end of families staying in public schools, which will have an impact on the type of community this town will become. The email and survey sent out last Friday provided my family with a small amount of hope and is at least a step in the right direction. Survey responses are due this Friday. Do we have a date of when we will be notified of any teacher changes and class placement for the 3rd trimester based on those results? Will we make these changes on March 10th, even if the open date gets pushed out? I realize there are many people that don't agree with this and don't see what the point is making this change for only 1 trimester. But the fact is that to some of these kids, mine included, every single day matters to them. They are hanging on by a thread, and it's only getting harder. Since coming back from Christmas break, I have noticed a significant drop of their effort, attitude, and will to do their work. They are 7 and 9 years old. I know the teachers can see this and feel this too, even through the screen. So many kids are getting more and more lost. And to these kids, 1 trimester will make a difference, and that is the whole point. There's obviously still a lot we don't know about COVID, but one thing we do know, which we did not know 6 months ago, is that in-person learning is not spreading the virus. There have been numerous studies done that show the virus is not being transmitted in the classroom. What happened to following the science? Teachers and students will still get it, of course, but they get it from the community, not from being in the classroom. Before the meeting, I read all of the public comments directed toward the board. I noticed a lot of letters from teachers requesting the vaccine before they return to in-person learning. I would agree that it is an ideal situation and would be great to get all teachers and staff vaccinated before going back to in-person learning. But unfortunately, our governor did not classify them or our children's education as essential, and now they have to wait. Even our essential grocery store workers who have had to work during this whole pandemic are not being offered the vaccine before the teachers who have been able to do their job from behind a screen up until now. Our children should not have to wait until all of the teachers get this vaccine. They have waited long enough. I understand to some extent the stance of the teachers union and their comments and requests. After all, they are standing up for the group they are supposed to represent. But let me ask this, who is the group that is representing our kids? Who is standing up for them? That group is supposed to be you, our board members that were voted in by the community to fight for the needs of every single child in this district. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And now we'll move to Liz Voisin, followed by Morgan Crinklaw. Again, thanks to the audience for your patience on these transitions. There's a variety of different connection types that we're tapping into, and sometimes it takes a moment just to transition people over. Is it Is it just the one connection? Can we skip and go to the next, or? Okay. That's just, we kind of do that, just let me know who's coming up. Okay, so I believe we have Morgan Krinkla coming in. Hello, good evening.
Good evening. Hi, everybody, and thank you very much for the opportunity to speak with you this evening. My children are extremely excited about the prospect of returning to school. My 6th grade daughter is especially looking forward to truly experiencing middle school for the first time. It is my sincere hope that their excitement is not turned to disappointment over the next month. Each month, parents and students seem to be presented with yet another hurdle. First, it was the 2/3 majority vote to return. Now it's that all school employees receive the vaccine before in-person learning resumes. In her update, the representative from the LEA confirmed that their members are only willing to go back once they receive the vaccine. But she then went on to lament that there is no plan or timeline to get the vaccine. If this is required before we can return to in-person learning, can you please share what steps the district is taking to ensure this happens by March 10th? As of today, a little over a month away from the target reopen date, the vaccine is not available to teachers. Once the vaccine does become available, how long will it take for every staff member to receive it? And once they receive the first vaccine, will we have to wait another month before they receive the second? The likelihood of this criteria being met by March 10th seems very low. Governor Newsom recently expressed his frustration with the ever-growing demands put forward by the CTA, saying that if we wait for the perfect scenario to return to school, quote, we might as well just pack it up and be honest with folks that we're not going to open for in-person school instruction this year. My request to you is to be honest with us as to whether or not we're going to be open for in-person instruction this year. I'd rather know now and avoid having my kids get their hopes up about going back. For the last few months, I've heard a recurring theme as you've read the correspondence to the board. Many of the letters urge you not to rush to reopen and instead base your decision to return based on the science. Unfortunately, the science seems to be a subjective term these days. Just last week, doctors from the CDC published an article in the Journal of the American Medical Association highlighting research that found little evidence of transmission through in-class instruction. Additionally, the President, Governor Newsom, the CDC, and others have all called for the reopening of schools. I'm cautiously optimistic that our kids will return to the classroom this year, but I remain unclear how the district intends to ensure that that happens. The plan presented tonight seems to be boiled down to simply waiting for the vaccine. I hope that's not the case. I appreciate your time, and I stand ready to help in any way I can. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir. And I believe we'll go to, is it Catherine Koziemski? We're going to go back. Okay. We're going to go to Morgan Krinkla. I'm sorry, Liz Boyson.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, you're on. Thank you.
Hi, good evening, Board President Bueno, members of the board, Superintendent Bowers, and Cabinet. I am Liz Boyson, parent of a Granada High School senior. My daughter is a very positive and happy girl. Just being around her can lift your spirits. But she hit a wall about 3 weeks ago. She broke. She cried. She's unmotivated. Feels like, what's the point? They don't care about us anyways. We didn't know it at that day, but she wrote a letter to help her ease her despair. She shared it with her dad and I a few days ago. It broke us. We are heartbroken for our daughter and the many kids that are struggling, not learning and missing so very much. She didn't want to read tonight, but said I could. Here's her letter. The things I miss the most about high school are the things we took for granted. The feeling of waking up at 6:30 a.m. ready to start my day, a warm cup of coffee, a perfectly cooked egg with a nice piece of toast. Grab my keys and I'm on my way to the place I never thought I would miss so much, school. School was almost like this safe place. Even when the way to finals or that one test you forgot to study for was on your shoulders, it was still weirdly a place you could find comfort within. Waiting for your friends to arrive one by one at your spot was the most heartwarming feeling there was. Nothing beats seeing the campus supervisors early in the morning with a bright smile on their face, and of course your favorite teachers. That feeling when the bell rung after every class and the rush you felt to go find your friends at that one spot every group or person had, or the crowds of people you had to dodge between in the hallways. That one designated hangout area, lunch table, or meetup will soon be passed on to the next graduating class. Boy, will they never understand how many memories were made at that spot. The good old classroom days when no one knew what they were doing in math, so we all worked together, moving tables around and chairs to fill the answers in together, or trying not to laugh when the classroom is dead silent, but it never works, so instead you have snorts coming from your nose. What about that feeling when there was 5 minutes left of class and it was time to put the Chromebooks away, but then suddenly everyone around you has broken legs and needs theirs put away too? So you end up taking 5 other computers with you to put away. Oh, what I would do to see the whole quad run to see another stupid fight. Even the campus supervisors hated it, although they hated it. Homecoming rallies were such a rush of adrenaline. Once that clock hit 10:30, the doors would swing open and the race began. Rushing into the gym and going to your general area where your group sat. Sitting in weird spread out positions to save it for your friends is a feeling I'll never forget. When Friday nights came around, it was routine for all the high school students to get all dressed up for the football games. And right after, I'm sure you can guess the most popular food place was to go. In-N-Out. The cold yet warm breeze blowing through the air as you wait in line to get your number that will only take an hour to be announced over the speaker because the line was flooded with so many students. How about the days in late spring when it's perfectly warm out with a little breeze and there's no homework to do? I miss that. Nothing can beat the random fire alarms going off and suddenly S10 becomes mixed with 102 and P25. Oh, to see my teachers again. I wish I could go into my teacher's classroom during ACE again and nod my head yes, even though I have no idea what's going on and would probably need it repeated 12 more times. Or to spill pointless drama to my favorite teachers. You know who you are. I was never a fan of finals, but man, would I do anything in the world to be able to sit in a desk and take a test. I know some of these things may not even be a big deal to you and probably will slip your mind, but not a day goes by where I don't think about these little details. Not being able to say goodbye is the hardest thing I've had to accept. With love, Ashlyn Boyson, Granada High School senior class of 21. I'm almost done. Breaks your heart, doesn't it? Can you all honestly say you've done your best for them? Where's that same fight you had for class of 2020? The forgotten class of 2021 would like to know. Even just 3 months back in school would mean the world. I'm really hoping that the latest update of getting them back in classrooms in March is genuine and real, and not just an attempt to calm the masses. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We'll now move to Catherine Koziemski. Followed by Cynthia Chisholm. You're on.
Thank you. Good evening, President Bueno, members of the board, Superintendent Bowers, and Cabinet. First, thank you for keeping student and family health and safety a priority. I know you are in the difficult position of making hard choices for all our students, and there is no way to make everyone happy, even in the best of times. I trust you will follow all state, county, and local guidelines for reopening when it is time. The question is, how do you know when it is really safe, rather than as safe as can be in the current time? I completely support the teacher's request to be fully vaccinated before they are teaching in person. While the current data shows that children under 11 do not spread COVID as easily as adults, we have no data that this new variant currently hitting our country. The first 6 cases of this variant were confirmed today in Alameda County hospitals. Teachers have a right to work in a safe and healthy environment. Many families who want in-person school at any cost wonder why so many of us want it to remain closed even if we're not going back anyway. If their choice didn't impact me, I'd be fine with everyone else having a choice. But it does, because none of us live on an isolated island. Community spread is real. Livermore has twice and triple the cases of Dublin and Pleasanton. When schools open, the community is at greater risk of spread. Additionally, many of the families fighting for reopening are the very people not following the guidelines. Parents of our schools in public forums and on social media are bragging about getting COVID and taking advantage of their perceived short immunity window to do whatever they want. Parents continue to have play dates without distancing and masks or host parties and house guests. One person on the most recent petition going around wrote, COVID regulations are ridiculous. Kids need to be in school and we all need to stop being forced to comply. End of story. These are many of the people who are returning to campus when you reopen. It would be irresponsible to ask unvaccinated teachers and students to be in a room with families who don't believe in nor practice masking up and physical distancing. Additionally, reopening creates the unavoidable shakeup with classes and teachers. The one consistency for my children during this time has been their teachers and classmates. To upset this apple cart will have a severe impact during this year of continued turmoil and uncertainty. Answering that survey felt like a no-win choice. I am also advocating for my children. Parents who want to return to in-person learning for mental health concerns seem to have no concern over how appeasing a small percentage of parents will impact 100% of children. I know that mental health concerns over continued isolation is very real. Going back to in-person learning is not a promise to heal all mental health issues. It's not therapy, and it's not a panacea for all that is hard during a global pandemic. I speak to you also as someone who lost a parent when I was 10 years old. I would not wish a health crisis or death of a parent to this disease on any family or child. I have too many friends that I care to count who have lost someone to COVID in the last year. And in addition to death, I have friends and loved ones with permanent lung, heart, kidney, and digestive damage due to COVID. This is not a time for what we believe is safe. What we know works is staying home. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now we're going to move to Heather Day, followed by Aaron McGuire.
All right, I didn't realize
Hi.
I was next, but it looks like I am.
You're on.
Okay, great. I'm Heather Day. I am a parent of a 5th grader and a 7th grader. And I want to start by saying thank you to LVJUSD leadership and all of the teachers who have worked so hard to keep kids learning through this difficult year. You have done an incredible job trying to keep the diverse needs of Livermore's kids and families in mind. I am here to ask you not to throw all that hard work away by reorganizing classes to allow for in-person learning this school year. I strongly believe that maintaining continuity of instruction should be added to your criteria for reopening. The district has put forth several plans this year that would accommodate in-person learning for kids who want or need it without disrupting the classroom communities that teachers have worked so hard to build, such as the distance learning plus in-person support hubs model that was proposed in November. What happened to the promise that you would stay with that model unless a supermajority of families voted for in-person learning? 61% of families voted for the stability of distance learning. I would ask you to re-examine your in-person options that do not require kids to change teachers and find a way to make those work. If that is truly impossible, I would ask that you find a way to reorganize classes within students' existing schools. It would be bad enough for kids to change teachers at this point in the school year, but to ask students like my shy 5th grader to switch into a class based at a different school with both students and a teacher that she has never met in person would throw her off track for the rest of the year. She literally had a stomachache all weekend after I, as calmly as possible, talked to her about what was in that survey. I know many people are worried about students' mental health with distance learning, but being taken out of their existing peer network, put in a virtual class with strangers, would be terribly stressful and depressing for so many kids. But so is going back to school before adequate safety criteria are met. Right now, I don't have enough information to fill out your survey. Of course, my daughter would love to go back to school in person with her wonderful teacher, but not at the expense of her physical or mental health, or that of her peers or her teachers. So please, either update your plans to ensure that children will stay at their current schools, even if they have to change teachers, or convince me that if we pick the stay with current teacher no matter what option, that adequate COVID prevention measures will be in place to make her feel safe going to school in person, to make us feel confident, and protect her peers and teachers. Tonight's presentation was a good start, but I would like to see detailed criteria in writing and a promise to adhere to it before I commit to any possibility of in-person learning. Thank you.
Thank you. Now we'll move to Aaron McGuire, followed by Liz Watson. How are we doing? Okay, then let's go to Liz Watson. Okay. Followed by Lori Valenzuela.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
My camera, for some reason, is not picking up.
Okay. We can hear you, so go ahead.
Okay.
This is Liz
Good evening.
Watson, correct?
Yes, yeah, hi. Good evening, Board President Bueno, Superintendent Bowers, members of the board and cabinet. I have been a teacher in this district for over a decade, and I love my job with a passion. I have always felt completely supported by our administration and leadership, from the site level all the way to the top of the district office and even the school board. This year, I have felt that support begin to waver. This year has been exceptionally challenging for everyone, and the stress and anxiety my students are feeling is not lost on me or the other teachers. However, neither is the stress or anxiety of our families, as we consider the reality of going back to a classroom before we've been given the opportunity to be vaccinated. Teachers want to teach. We want to be in a classroom, but we want to be safe. Schools and teachers are essential to our society, as we should be. But we are also sorely underfunded and faced with resource shortages that make returning without a solid safety plan in place incredibly scary. We teach in small classrooms with windows that do not open, ventilation that is outdated, and desks that need to touch each other in order to fit into the small space. Do teachers want to go back into our classrooms and do the jobs we love again? Yes. Do we all hope to return soon? Yes. Can the district wait a few more weeks until we are fully vaccinated and safe to return? The answer should also be yes. At this point, we're talking about a matter of weeks, not months or years, until we see our teachers fully vaccinated. I urge the board to hold out for that milestone and wait just a little bit longer. It is true the vaccine will not reduce the chance of transmission or illness to zero, but it greatly reduces that chance to a risk level I believe most teachers would be comfortable with. This weekend, I made a frustrated and disheartened post on social media because it felt like the world was working against teachers in our district, telling us we had no right to be scared of this virus. On that simple post, Livermore showed up. In under 24 hours, my post had over 1,200 positive reactions and 300 plus comments from the community, letting me and other teachers know that for every loud person yelling to reopen our schools before we are vaccinated and safe, there are 50 other parents quietly supporting us in the background and holding both our safety and the safety of their children as their topmost priority when it comes to reopening our schools. To clarify, the union is not trying to keep schools closed. LEA is not a mafia organization making unreasonable demands. It is an organized collection of Livermore teachers who wants what's best for everyone. We stand united for students, united in education, united in safety, and united in resolving this conflict. Again, I ask you to consider the safety of all 1,500 employees and everyone in our community and wait just a little bit longer until we are fully vaccinated. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Now we'll transition. Are we able to go back? Or are we moving forward? Okay, we're going to go to Lori Valenzuela, followed by Kathleen Jones.
Good evening, Board President Bueno, Superintendent Bowers, members of the board, and cabinet. I am a sixth grade core teacher at Junction. This year has been one of the most challenging years we have had to face, and yet some amazing things have come of it. Students have truly shown their resiliency as they master technology, strive to learn in difficult circumstances, and have transitioned into a new norm. Every day, my students and I think about something we are thankful for as we laugh, smile, and learn together. They are the reason I am thankful and happy to start each day. I'm here to speak on behalf of Junction staff as well as some other middle school teachers in our district. 77% of our staff LEA members are in agreement, and the majority of these members are in attendance tonight in support of this collaborative statement. This represents a diverse group of people of 8 different ages with varying family situations and health needs. We love our students and we want to return to in-person teaching as soon as it is safe. With the vaccine being available, we are hopeful that staff members will have the opportunity to be fully vaccinated soon. We are asking for the board to consider making vaccines a criteria before staff return in person. This means allowing staff to be fully vaccinated, including both doses that require 3 to 4 week waiting periods after each dose. We understand that there are people who are not able to be vaccinated, which makes it even more important for those staff members who choose to get vaccinated before returning in person. We are teachers, nurses, counselors, and therapists, but we also are parents, family members, and caregivers. There are educators in Livermore that have been supporting and advocating for our children for 20 to 30 years or more. We chose this path in life because we are dedicated to our children. We have always and will always continue to do everything we can to support our students' academic growth, physical growth, and social emotional well-being. Yes, I say our children because I am a parent. As a parent, I treat my students the way I want my children treated. I want them to be safe, supported, and cared for. We want to be with our students, but as I stated before, we have families to care for too. My husband is a cancer survivor who is on medicine daily so he can live. I have 2 children who are high risk. There are many more staff members in the same position, torn between returning to a job we love and the health and safety of our families at home. Regardless of our situations at home, our students and staff should only be asked to return when it is safe, and our definition of safe is when we are fully vaccinated. We appreciate everything Amy Thompson and Keith Pickering have done to be our voice, but please understand, we, your children's teachers, counselors, nurses, therapists, we are LEA. We speak and stand together. We thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you very much. And now we'll move to Kathleen Jones, followed by Diane Crittenden. Hello.
Good evening, Board President Bueno, members of the board, Superintendent Bowers, and Cabinet. I'm Kathleen Jones, a 3rd grade teacher at Jackson Avenue. I've been at Jackson Avenue for 19 years and have been an LEA member for all 19 years because the union supports teachers and our interests. The school year has been very challenging. Virtual learning doesn't allow us to have the close contact with the students that we love to have. But it's also given us a few opportunities. Technology, students becoming familiar with technology, teachers becoming familiar with technology, embracing things that we would have never had to embrace before. Yes, it has been a challenging year, but we have learned from those challenges as we learn every year with our students. We want to be back in the classroom more than anybody wants to be back in the classroom. We miss the interaction. I am from a family of teachers. My brother and sister-in-law are teachers in another district, and they were forced to go back to work. Their union didn't ask them. Their school district didn't ask them. Their board didn't ask them. The teachers were forced. And within 3 weeks, several of them had to leave because they had contracted the virus. So we implore you, please let us come back to work when we are fully vaccinated. Not before, but after, for the safety of all of the staff at our school district and our students. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And now we're going to move to Diane Crittenden.
Good evening, Board President Bueno, members of the board, Superintendent Bowers, and Cabinet. My name is Diane Crittenden, and I'm a 1st grade teacher at Sunset. I'm very proud to say that I'm a member of LEA. It's my union. It represents the needs and interests of all of us in the teaching profession, but as well the entire community, because teachers are reflecting what we feel is most important for our students and the community at large. My class this year is called the Narwhals, and we're having all kinds of adventures learning together. Distance learning has certainly broadened my technological toolkit, and it's given a lot of opportunities. As challenging as it's been, I've found a lot of creative ways to try to keep students engaged, and I love learning with my class every day. This is also the first time in my 28 years as a teacher that I've been able to meet with small groups every single day to differentiate instruction and give my students my undivided attention, because I don't have to put out fires in the classroom and attend to anybody's requests to go to the bathrooms. So that has been an absolute gift to me. But I would love nothing more than to be in the classroom with my kids. I want to be sitting beside them, gently guiding them as they learn to read, and helping them hand over hand to form all those tricky letters. Lowercase k is my nemesis right now. I want to hear them singing with me. I want to hear them collaborating together. I want to hear them laughing together. We want to be together in the classroom, but these are just all my daydreams. And my daydreams are tempered by the need to be safe. I want our community to stay as healthy as it possibly can. I want my students to feel safe and stay healthy. I want my family to feel safe and stay healthy. And while I feel that it would be the safest thing for all of Livermore to remain in distance learning, I understand that a return to in-person instruction is coming sometime, perhaps in the spring. And since students won't be able to be vaccinated yet, I feel that it's crucial that teachers and all school staff are given the opportunity to not only receive the vaccine, but to be given the full amount of time for the vaccine's efficacy before a push to launch the return to in-person instruction. You know, as educators, we have all been guided by the idea that students learn best when they feel safe. That's why we work so hard to create a loving and comforting and warm environment for our students. And teachers are the same way. We need to feel safe to be the best that we can be. So please help us to be safe so we can be the best we can be. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. And we're going to move to Carol King. And they'll be followed by Keith Pickering Walters. Good evening. Go ahead and unmute and you're ready to go. Bottom left corner. There you go.
Good evening, Board President Bueno, members of the board, Superintendent Bowers, and Cabinet, and it's great to see our new board members. I am Carol King, and I teach third grade at Arroyo Seco Elementary. This is my 28th year of teaching. I have seen a lot of changes and challenges throughout the years, but of course this year is like no other. Like all teachers, I am adaptable and willing to learn the necessary new skills to teach in these conditions, and I am willing to put in the extra hours to make these changes. With that said, no amount of meeting with my class, small groups and individuals, or learning new programs and skills, or sending messages or making videos is ever going to make this year normal or even comparable to an in-person year. There are a few positives. I have surprised myself with what I'm still capable of learning. I have had to reach a new level of planning and organization that I didn't come close to before. I get to go to the bathroom more than twice a day, but I miss my students. Not just the ability to see their work and interact with them as I teach, but I miss their conversations and their personalities. I am hopeful that teachers and staff will be vaccinated very soon, as it's the only thing that will make me feel safe enough to return to in-person teaching. And finally, I want to tell you, as representatives of our families and community, that while I often see messages in social media from parents that are supportive of teachers, especially their own child's teacher, that support wanes when speaking of teachers in a general sense. I am a teacher of 25 individual students and also part of a third grade team on a large elementary school staff that is connected to all Livermore schools. And that is what our union is. We do not have a union that is making decisions for and about teachers. Teachers are the union. And together we are trying to get back to the kids and the job we love in the safest way possible.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I believe we're going to conclude. Our final speaker is Keith Pickering Walters. We'll transition to him in a moment. Good evening.
Good evening, Superintendent Bowers, Board President Bueno, board members, and cabinet. I'm Keith Pickering Walters, the elected Vice President of the Livermore Education Association. On behalf of our members, we are asking our school board to continue to make the safety of employees and students a priority. Please accept this checklist for the next phase of the LVJUSD reopening plan. Thank you and have a great night.
Thank you very much. I believe we have no more callers. Okay. Let's move into some board member comments and maybe questions. We'll begin with Ms. Guzman.
So I do have a couple of questions. First of all, thank you for presenting this. I too have also been reading that children are not spreaders of the virus. However, they can be carriers, or I should say, they can be carriers, but they're not getting sick, is what I should say. It's not affecting them. But I've also been reading articles about schools that have when students return to campus. The issue there is that there is turnover among the staff because it does affect adults, the teachers. Teachers are not in the classroom because they're being exposed and have to quarantine. So my question is, what percent, realizing we have to follow HIPAA, I don't need any, but what percent of our teacher population, our staff that are working with students have had to quarantine or have had tested positive? That's the first part. And the second part is, even though they may have tested positive and quarantining at home, are they still able to teach because it's long distance learning and doing that on the computer? That's part of it. The other part is how large is our substitute pool? Because I also been reading some of the letters, why can't we just get substitutes? Well, I'd like to know how many substitutes do we have in comparison to pre-COVID times. And then the other thing this is just a language issue for me, we keep using the word reopening schools. I want to be very clear that our schools are open and we are using hubs and students are being serviced at the campus. So the ask here is not that we reopen schools. I think the ask here is how many more students can be on campus at the same time in a safe manner. So that is just a clear distinction that I want to make out there, that our schools are open and they are being serviced. Students are being serviced. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We'll move to Mrs. Prusso. Yes.
Okay, I have a couple of questions. My first question is, and some of the parents had these questions as well, so I think this will be a good time to answer, is talking about the survey. I know we don't have the results to the survey yet, but there has been a question if on March 10th, what happens on that date, regardless of I guess, where we're at with a vaccine?
So March 10th is the beginning of trimester 3. So that was identified as a natural break, particularly for secondary school students. And so when discussing the possibility of opening in the spring, our folks at the high school thought it would make a lot of sense for us to create class groupings that would consist of students who intended to come back and students who didn't, and not wait until 3 or 4 weeks into the trimester and then do those regroupings. And so March the 10th represents the beginning of trimester 3. It represents the date at which we would create regroupings. Whether we would actually implement those regroupings probably has a lot to do with how close we are at that point to welcoming students back onto campus in large numbers. Clearly, if there was a long delay in the vaccine and the board had determined that that was one of the criteria that was important, it probably wouldn't make sense for us to implement those class changes if return wasn't imminent. But the reason March 10th was selected was because that is the next natural break for us, primarily at the secondary level, but also at the primary level. That's the end of trimester 2, the beginning of trimester 3.
Okay, I like the idea of having the changes happening at that time, irregardless of whether we're in person, right? So we have a plan for the changes, parents and teachers can prepare for that, and then we start. But like I hear what you're saying. Right now, one of the things that's out of our control is the vaccine. If for some unforeseen thing that it's just tends to be way out farther than we had expected, then maybe that wouldn't be the right thing to do, or at least maybe that wouldn't be the right thing to do for elementary students. But maybe, like you said, for high school students, it's a natural break anyway. So for them to like just get into those classes and get that schedule going. So it might be something like that.
Yes.
Okay. And then another question that came up is what we're doing to prepare for the vaccine and how long might that take if tomorrow they said, here, we have enough vaccines for you. What does that look like?
And I'd kind of like to answer that because
Okay.
I've been sitting here listening to a lot of people almost think that the vaccine, waiting for the vaccine is something, it is out of our direct control, but it's definitely not out of our sphere of influence. And we have been exerting that influence in every single capacity possible. Politically, with our leaders, people who are empowered to make those changes, with our county, with our health department, with medical professionals. That has been pretty much day and night what every single person who is in those positions, including myself, has made it the highest priority. So we're not passively sitting here hoping for a vaccine to drop out of the sky. We are actually, once we realized that that was one of the key pieces and that we were this close after waiting 10, 11 months and doing everything else possible that we could do, we have positioned ourselves very well for that next step. And so we have made sure that we have applied to become a pod, which is a point of distribution. And we have set ourselves up. We've purchased medical grade freezers. We have made sure that our nurses have applied and they are certified as not only to distribute vaccines, they're certified to handle them, which is a whole nother certification. We have secured a doctor of medical record with an agency, which is very difficult to do because you need to have liability in place, and we've done that. We've also made arrangements and had an approved community distribution vaccine site. It's already been approved. So we have done all of those things. When I say we, it's not just me. I've certainly led a lot of those efforts and some of them personally made contacts, but it's not just me. There's a team of people, nurses, our custodial staff, leaders, our board president has helped. A lot of people have been exerting those efforts to make it come to fruition. And so the only pieces missing now is the when and the actual vaccines. But we also have not sat on our laurels about that. The contacts and the pitches we have made and the follow-up that we've continued to press upon, and these are relationships that have been built for a long time, and it's not going out of the chain of command. It's actually following the protocols that we always do. We advocate for our children, we advocate for our community, and we go to the people who are positioned to make those changes. So we've done that very directly. Even some of them are newly elected, and some of them have been elected for years. And some of them are in public health positions. So we have done that. My understanding is that some of the efforts we have made have now pushed other people into that same mode. And my understanding is there will be shortly newer announcements coming out about the importance of educators, not just Livermore educators, certainly that's our focus, but educators and people who have contacts with our children being vaccinated at a highest priority or one of the higher priorities. And that has to happen more quickly. And the reason why it has to happen quickly is not just because parents want their children in school or we want to be with children, certainly. It's because education, public education, is so pivotal in all of the things that go on in society. And if distance learning and the pandemic hasn't proven anything else, is that a lot of things are riding on public school functioning. Whether it's the economy, people's jobs, people's mental health, and just children's future. So all of these things are happening. and I'm not in a position to say exactly when, but I'm beyond hopeful. I'm very certain that these things, it probably isn't going to happen exactly around March 10th, but that's an arbitrary date. That's our trimester schedule. I don't expect, other agencies to fix that date, but it will be definitely the spring that we can be positioned. So this is not a pipe dream. This is not a lack of reality. It's people who are positioned to do these things and us positioning ourselves with every single step and criteria and blockade that's been brought to us. So we are prepared as you can be. And that's why we'll continue to say, rather than pit each other against and have everybody, worrying about every little thing about a minute on a Wednesday or this and that, the big focus is get vaccines. Get them. It'll not only make our teachers safe, it'll make all of our staff safe. It'll also make our entire community safe, and it'll get everyone further along to herd immunity, which is really what we want. But we still also want to respect the fact that some families aren't going to want to do that, and some staff members can't. And so that means they can't come in because of a medical reason, or maybe they can't get a vaccine because of a medical reason. And so in that case, we still will offer distance learning. Mm-hmm. So I also want to make sure that that's clear. But I'm glad you asked that, Trustee Prusso, because we're just not sitting here waiting around hoping. We're actually making things happen and positioning ourselves as our board has always directed us. Position yourself for every opportunity, even while you're keeping the other ones going. The other thing I just wanted to follow up was someone earlier had mentioned that our students missed their graduation. Every single graduate passed our stage at the high school level. So our class of 2020 had that, and we're committed, no matter what circumstances, to make sure that we have some sort of ceremonial milestone passage for our graduates from our high school, class of 2020 or 21. And so I just want to make sure that people know that, because I think that, again, our job is not just to do our job, it's to correct misinformation when it's out there about things that we are not doing or things we are. And again, I'm sorry, my throat is so sore tonight. So, and I passed my COVID test. I just have terrible asthma. So sorry about that.
Okay,
Thank you, Dr.
Thank you
Bauer.
for those clarifications. I also just wanted to point out, I feel like in a lot of the emails and many of the comments, people seem concerned about the details of the protocols and the safety, and that they are on the website. I have looked at them, and they're very detailed. They explain what will happen if someone tests positive. They explain what the protocols for getting onto campus are, all of those things. They're on there. We have a plan, and they're on the website. So I would just direct you to the website. There's a lot of really great information on there. And then I also just wanted to comment. I was going to bring up the graduation thing as well. My son graduated last year, and I'm going to get a little bit emotional. I really appreciate Ashlyn Voisin's letter that her mother read to us. And I do have a lot of empathy for these students, especially these seniors. But I do want to say that I have seen our district go above and beyond last year for the graduation for 2020. And I wasn't involved. I was involved only as a parent. And it was really an incredible experience for our family, and probably the best graduation I've ever been to and ever will be able to go to. It was just very thoughtful. It was very student focused. And I know that both of the high school principals and their staff worked many, many hours to make sure that we could do it safely. I have no doubt that we will be able to either do something similar or have even a more normal graduation this year. But it is just having experienced that graduation with my son, and also experiencing it at each of our schools high schools last year, that I have faith that we try to figure out what we can do instead of what we can't do. And then there's just one thing that you asked for direction. There's just one thing that I would like to possibly say and put in for the direction, and that is that I think two things can be true at once: that we can open schools and we can be safe. And because we are so close to a vaccine, I want to support the superintendent's recommendation that the vaccines be available to our staff. And I think that that's really important, and I think we all have hope that that will be really close, and I appreciate Dr. Bowers giving us an update on that. However, barring unforeseen vaccine drama and us not really knowing or having control over that, I would like to request that if by the middle of March we are still far away from our goal of vaccinating the staff, that we meet and reassess what our actions might be at that point, whether we stick to that or whether we maybe begin a reopening plan, a safe reopening plan at levels that we feel is safe. Again, I hope it doesn't come to that, and I think all of us are hopeful that it won't come to that, but I would like to just put a caveat that that's something that maybe we can consider. And like I said, if we get to the middle of March and it's close, let's just move forward. But if we get there and it's far away, maybe we need to reassess where we're at. That's my my only thing. Otherwise, I support everything that you guys are doing. I think that it's safe. I think that it's clear. I can see the advocacy that's happening, and I would really like to get our students and our teachers back into the classroom. And I do believe that we can do so safely.
Thank you, Clerk Russo. And now we'll go to Trustee Wong.
I've been up in the middle of the night, multiple nights, just thinking through, there are 100 things I want to say, and I won't say them because it's just going to, you'll all be here all night. But the difficulty with this situation is that everyone's experienced this pandemic differently. Our students don't agree, our parents don't have the same experience, our teachers don't have the same experience. So for us to make policy that will satisfy everybody is impossible. And so all we can do is try to do the most good while doing the least harm. And that's what we're trying to do. And so I really appreciate this checklist because it shows me that our district has done everything that's within our control, because a lot is not. And so the things that are preparing the schools, getting the PPE, all of that kind of stuff. And as Superintendent Bowers said, even the vaccine is not something we're passively sitting around waiting for. I've made a lot of calls to people I know. I know she has done more than make calls. She's really put the pressure on anyone she can who has any control over the vaccines and where they're going, and getting freezers and making us as prepared as we can be. We're doing everything we can. We want the schools to open so badly. I mean, 3 of us currently have children in the schools, and we've experienced this firsthand as parents, and our friends, children, and our friends who are teachers. And this is where I get emotional, because many of my friends who are teachers, I think at least 1 or 2 of the teachers tonight said, a lot of people have said, they love their children's teachers, specifically those teachers. But then when they speak generally about teachers, they're very cavalier, almost like they don't care about their health and safety. And I've had friends who are teachers cry to me on the phone because they feel so beaten down in a year that's already so difficult that they've had to feel like they don't have the support of the community, even if they do, of their specific students' families. So I just want them to know we support them. We care about their health and safety a lot. And so I do know we're working very hard on vaccines for our district. They're close. I would also like to wait to make sure we can get those to our teachers. But I also agree that if we're coming, near the end of the school year, and whatever plans and efforts we made don't seem like they're coming to fruition, I would like to see if there are alternative options, like maybe the teachers who voluntarily want to come back can be paired up with students who want to come back. I don't know. I know that then puts pressure on teachers who don't want to come back, so that's not a perfect solution either, but I would like to at least see what we can do if it does come to that. But I just don't think I can force teachers to go in the classroom when it's not safe or without vaccines. So I do have a question about the other piece that's not within our control, which is community spread. I've read a lot about what level of community spread is safe to bring students back. And I know the county has guidance on that, and sometimes it changes. So can you give us an update on what the current status is?
So the red tier is still fewer than 8, rolling average of fewer than 8 new cases per 100,000. The governor recently indicated that he was going to move the goalpost a little bit to 25 or fewer per 100,000 in order to approve school reopening. The governor's plan did not get passed through the legislature. The funding mechanisms did not get advanced either. I'm not certain where the 25 number came up with. The tiered system has not changed, and so the red tier is still fewer than 8 rolling average, which is a 7-day average, fewer than 8 per 100,000. And as I mentioned, Livermore has recently reduced, just over the last week and a half, has gone from the mid 40s to the low 30s, and now this week we're in the teens. And so things are certainly trending in the right direction, and certainly it appears as though we're headed for single digits fairly soon, although COVID goes where COVID goes. And so I think as long as the community continues to do the right things and distance and masks, I think we're probably not too far away from red tier. And I believe just the next, which is orange, I believe that is below like 5.5.
Okay, thank you. I think I have one other quick thing, but I've forgotten it. Maybe I'll think of it later. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We'll move to Trustee White.
Yes, I guess I would join Mrs. Wong with proposing that we allow as many choices as possible, both for students and their families and for the teachers who, for various reasons, can't be, would choose not to be vaccinated, or can't get vaccinated because of supply problems, which Mrs. Bowers is working on. On the other hand, I think that there is a clear need to help families mitigate the concerns they have for their children who are at wit's end at home with nobody to talk to. Now, I'm not sure what it could be, but if those same children were spontaneously coming down with something contagious, we would take care of it. I think it's the silent problem of depression, mental health issues, and I'm not sure what to do about it. But reopening wouldn't solve all the problems, but perhaps we can come up with some sort of a plan to have more hubs and more cohorts. I mean, it's an investment in those children's and those families' sanity. You know, if they sit and cry all day, they're not learning. And if they're not learning, we're not doing our job. Because we'd like to have them learn their arithmetic as well as how to cope under adverse circumstances. It seems to me also that we're being asked to pick and choose which part of science to accept. Because we accept the Alameda County Public Health numbers, looking for 8 in the red tier, or 15, or whatever somebody up there has decided. And on the other hand, our teachers are reluctant to look at the numbers that say transmission is very low in schools, either for reasons that the students are less contagious than teenagers, or for whatever. But I wonder, like the person who did talk to us on the chat, wasn't the chat, public comment, do those same teachers go to the grocery store? Well, I don't know. I think it would be safer to be in a school with low transmission rate than a grocery store at the wrong time of day with everybody else there. So I think first I would like to do something to mitigate for the children that are really having a struggle at home by themselves, and provide as much choices for as many families as we can. As I said earlier, it doesn't impress me very much that a family and a student would like to have to change classrooms. On the other hand, when I was in elementary school, we changed. September, we got a class, and then February 1st, we got a different class, a different teacher often. But we were expecting that, so I can, it's an issue I can't attach myself to, but I do know that some families are really attached to their teacher, and maybe they have to make that choice. Do they want to stay with the teacher that they had and not do distance learning? I mean, I don't know what the choice would be in that situation, but like I say, increase the number of choices that individual families and teachers can make. And I have more things on my list, but I'll think about them later.
Thank you, Mrs. White.
Could I interrupt for 1 second? I
yes.
did receive another communication. This is what happens when we have live, since we don't have people in the audience. So we did, in the summary, and again, there were a lot of emails and correspondence received, and we tried, maybe we shouldn't always include people who email right up until the end, because then there's a tendency for possible mistakes. But Mr. Maloney, who is a teacher with us, he was summarized as saying that he wanted to be vaccinated, or he wanted to have vaccines available prior to returning, but he actually had it, that was not an accurate summary. So I would just like to read his, if that's okay, out of order. Sorry, Board Clerk, but this is a message to the board. A mistake was made at the meeting tonight on my behalf, as it was read in the public comments. At no time did I state I support all staff being vaccinated before a return to in-person learning. I, along with many other teachers, are willing to come back to in-person learning while waiting for vaccination, whenever that comes. Presently, I'm teaching in-person special education cohort. Since November, in-person hybrid teaching works. Thank you. So this is my first note to the school board, he says. So anyways, I just wanted to share that. I apologize.
Thank you. Looking on the direction side, I like the idea of a checklist. I think it gains clarity. It's very simplistic. It's as complicated as it is. I think you've gained illustrated clarity with it. The PPE thing was really big, and we look back and we kind of take that for granted. You're saying you have a several months supply. That was a big hurdle to overcome. The cleaning and sanitation, that goalpost has moved multiple times now, where the point of contact is secondary at best to the droplet and the airborne component of it. Ventilation, big piece. I know there might have been some comments made tonight about something being outdated, but I know that the district has taken action to upgrade, increase filtration on a MERV scale, which approaches the HEPA filter. The egress exit plans that were clearly illustrated in the video, and I hope that folks get a chance to look at those links on just a couple of the school sites, Emma Smith and Altamont. The screening component for COVID and the testing and the contact tracing, once we get to a level when you diminish community spread, that's a big piece. And what I want folks that are on the outside, when we have our own issues, and Trustee Wong talked about, we all have challenges. It's hit everyone in some way, in some ways tragically, and in some ways, maybe passively, but we're all at least observers of what's going on. And to me, my kids have already gone through the schools here, but I still look at this as a remarkable accomplishment. The hundreds of thousands of kids that were fed when the schools went into dismissal to maintain that effort. Trustee Prusso and others, working with our food folks to feed kids. The mental health piece, bringing in the school psychologist, now working on a vaccination plan. At some point, there's a limit to what schools can do, and it seems like we've exceeded our limits, and all for the benefit of kids. And I know there's going to be scrutiny, and I know folks that are, they want what they want, but I don't know. I'm not I'm not an educator. I'm an observer. And to me, if someone would have asked 10 years ago that schools are going to be doing viral testing and screening of employees and children and vaccination plans, people would have said, you're out of your mind. And to do it within existing resources, that's a remarkable accomplishment, and it's all in the best interest. I like the way the Trustee Wong said, posed it as, to cause the least harm while doing the most good. And I think that that's the effort here. These are people that are passionate about their job. We heard some teachers tonight, and I don't need to hear, more teachers tell me that the teachers are passionate. I believe that when I was a kid. Came to know that as an adult. The vaccine availability, it's been, anyone can criticize that and say where that originated. As someone who was in public health and serviced the public my entire adult life, and actually oversaw a vaccination program, a community-based one, during the last pandemic, that's a really difficult piece. And I know definitively that the district is positioned excellent in that regard to move forward on that. It's going to be a matter of demand and trying to get the supply. And I know that we're working political angles and every angle we can, and it's a matter of priority. This county that I served my entire professional career in public safety has a very, very long history of being very supportive of public education. We have 5 supervisors on the Board of Supervisors in Alameda County with a very long history of being supportive. And to me, this is an opportunity for the Board of Supervisors to exercise that discretion and to prioritize teachers in a regard as a matter of servicing the public and these children. There's a very, the spectrum of benefit, and if you look at it in a ratio, every teacher we put back in a classroom and the amount of kids that that's going to help and the amount of families, it's a big bang for your buck. And I know that their hands are tied in some regards. Currently, I heard the state epidemiologists were on today, and they're saying that 54 of the 58 counties in the state of California are in the most stringent, highest tier of this pandemic. And we need to come down in the 7-day average. The variant strains coming out of Brazil and the UK and South Africa are hitting. Some are saying that the vaccines may not be as effective. This is a crunch. It's a crunch on everyone. And, what's hard to hear, and I know a lot of it is emotion, having listened to public comment for greater than 30 years, I know that there's an emotional component that you have to get through to get down to the facts, to distill down to the facts. And it's difficult to hear the villainization of good people or good concepts or professionals when in fact the only villain, the only enemy in this entire equation is the virus. And we can't control that. We've heard numerous experts from the national level to the world level, all over, to say you can't control it. It's splitting right now. So I'm fully supportive of what you're doing. I like the idea and I support the idea of, as you have been already, it's not a new idea, and that is to continually revisit this. It's dynamic. The goalposts have moved numerous times, and I know that we're following the science. I'm very proud to have lived here almost 40 years in a community that embraces science. We're very fortunate. 70% of our teachers live in this community. It's a great community. It's very supportive of public education, and I know a lot of folks are going to be very vocal about their concern, but I have no doubt that this district is acting in the best interest of students and the teachers, staff, school psychologists, nurses that serve them. So I'm going to continue to stand in support of that and do everything in my power, as I'm sure my colleagues, fellow trustees are doing, to work in towards that end goal of getting these kids back in class, but not at the detriment of people's health. We need to make sure that people remain healthy. Safety is our concern. So, to just kind of recount, I think that as I heard the comments, I was trying to, if you're looking for recommendation, it was just basically in support of the list and to revisit the list routinely, if we have to have a workshop, whatever it is, so that we make sure that we capture what we need and can continue to collect data. And I ask for the public support in working the other side of this to get our teachers, to get our staff, to get those folks prioritized so that we can attain and make available the vaccine to lower community spread. And everyone, that's one of the things about living in an educated and scientific-based community, wear a mask. It's not that hard. You don't have to pull it off to be heard. Just wear the right mask, find one that fits, and it works. They're readily available now, and I think that is the end of it. That's how they beat it in 1918, before we even had technology and we couldn't do a Zoom meeting. They wore masks, and it was very simple. So that's my ask, and I hope that collectively that I've captured the direction of the board Still okay with that, Mr. Van Schack?
Absolutely. And I want to reassure Trustee Guzman, I will get back to you with answers to your questions. Some of the specifics about the number of quarantines and stuff, I'll have to get a most recent update and get that to you, but I'll send you an email tomorrow. And I'll include the rest of the board as well.
And those things I had down for Trustee Guzman's questions. How large is the substitute pool? How many teachers have had cases? How many have had to quarantine? Were those?
Right, and then the other part of, thank you Superintendent Bowers, but the other part is just, even in quarantining, are teachers still doing their job and getting online and doing the distance learning? Because, and this is just, and I'm at full in support of teachers, but this is just to hear more facts because, again, correcting misinformation that I tend to read.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you for the clarification.
So I guess also I'd like to be really clear about board direction because I heard from some people a specific date of March 15th. They would like to have something revisited. I had heard also that it would be just a regular revisiting, and I just want to be very clear about board direction, which is at least 3 people agreeing to something and giving us very clear board direction.
I don't know that it necessarily has to have a date. I just thought the middle of March would put us past the March 10th time where we're going to shift classes anyway. And there's probably a board meeting around there. And maybe
Is there any?
we could have an update on the vaccine at that point and then have a
Would it be-
discussion.
Would we be against if the data, we're not going to meet if we have no new data. But if new data presented itself as the district is gathering, as administration is gathering it, would we be in support of, say, a workshop between now and prior to the March 10th meeting?
Yeah.
That we could sit down and analyze, look at data, and so that we're being as proactive as possible? Would we have support for
Well,
that?
I think so. On the other hand, I think there is some time. I have no clue what it is, whether it's the 1st of April, the middle of April, the middle of May, that we would step back from reopening this year. If the science doesn't tell us that it's safe, if we have a new highly contagious, highly deadly strain that comes to California, we might want to not even open, but we might not. We have a rolling reassessment of the data.
And I appreciate that.
Yeah,
The one concern is just that I have in watching, you watch this unfold. We can watch it at a national level, locally, is that we put dates out that become targets for the community in terms of it's an expectation. And then when things change that are out of our control, people get upset because they start to gear their lives for it. So I feel currently that we've given out good data. So I wouldn't want to mislead someone and Trustee White, in terms of saying that it would be pre-thought out that, April or.
Oh, no, I just think that needs to be on our horizon of, there's a point to which we're going to step back.
Perhaps that could be part of a discussion, but
Yes.
I just don't want to enter anything into the public discussion that isn't fact or that we haven't had a chance to converse over. And so if it looks as though by head nod that we're in support of maybe a workshop or something between now and the March 10th date to consider additional data that the district is able to compile for us?
Yeah, is this data like the survey
Survey results.
and then maybe the scheduling?
What things would look like.
Okay.
So the things we're anticipating sharing are the answers to specific questions as well as survey data. We've surveyed families, which goes through Friday. We've also surveyed staff, classified and certificated, about their willingness to take vaccines and all those things. And then the other key piece is that we'll be hearing about phase 1B with very specifics, and we should have target dates for when distribution will begin, and then we can actually plot things out. So those things we just, as a matter of course, as soon as we know those, we share either in a Friday memo, or if it's immediate, hot off the press, we'll let you know. But we can also do it there's a couple of different ways. We can have a special board workshop. We can have an emergency board meeting, a special board meeting within 24 hours notice. If it's something that's really compelling, that will really shift things forward. And then we can also entertain the idea that when a regular scheduled board meeting, we could begin it earlier, like at 4 or something like that, to have a pre-session. So there's lots of options. I don't want you to feel tied to just the meetings that are there. because what we notice is, information comes sometimes Friday afternoon, or it comes in a wide variety of ways. So I think that would be helpful. So are we clear now?
Yes, I believe that you provided the direction that I was hoping to get this evening.
Okay.
And then the only other piece would be that within, as any kind of other changes happen, also, as Trustee Guzman had mentioned, and even some of our speakers tonight, and then this last teacher in particular, there are still lots of opportunities for support hubs and learning hubs to expand within guidelines. And so as those guidelines, we're still able to have small learning cohorts within existing guidelines. So those things we would also look at in between now and then, which some people do call reopening, but officially it isn't called reopening.
Right.
Okay. Thank you all. We're all good on this? Okay. Dr. Bowers, if you could introduce 9.2, please.
Certainly. For our next item, we'll ask Dr. Kevin Greer to join us, and he will be presenting an informational item on English learner reclassification. Definitely a celebratory update.
For the 2020-21 school year. Go ahead and hit next. Sorry. The next slide. There, all of our students, just to kind of give us all kind of a grounding here, all of our students are initially placed into one of the 4 categories based on parent guardian responses to the home language survey. If a parent or guardian indicates on that home language survey a language other than English is spoken in the house, then their child is given an LPAC initial assessment within 30 days upon entering a U.S. school. This assessment actually helps us to determine whether that child is an English learner or is initial fluent English proficient. In other words, they would be fine to not need English learner support services. The objective all along is to support our English learners in learning the academic English so they can be successful in both the core classes and become strong enough to be reclassified as a reclassified fluent English proficient student, or what we call an RFEP. Next slide, please. The LPAC, just some brief history, but the LPAC, the English Language Proficiency Assessment for California, that's what LPAC is, replaced the CELT back in 2018. It does have 4 parts to it. There's listening, there's speaking, there's writing and reading. The speaking always has to be done on a one-on-one testing basis. The others can be done in more of just a normal testing group situation. I would like to point out that the current COVID impact for the 1920 and 2021 school years was that we normally would do the summative assessments in the spring, but this time, because it happened to be in March, April, and May that would have taken place, we were able to split that. Those that we were able to do before having to close the schools to access, and then we restarted when school started back in fall. We were able to have 30 more days, plus they gave us an extension of 45, so that we were able to test as many times on the summative to assume the progress on the LPAC. Next slide. Okay, the LPAC places students into 4 levels, and it's based on how they do on the ELD standards that are assessed as well. These categories are used to group students in during designated instructional time at the elementary level, and then we're also able to identify those kids that we need to offer an additional period of ELD core instruction in the secondary level. Our goal is always to try to move as many students to level 4, because level 4 would be what is one of the considerations for a student to be reclassified. There's also a series of other measures that are used to determine the reclassification, such as the CAS results in the English section unfortunately, we didn't have that this spring, or this past spring, the district writing assessment, grade, and teacher recommendation. And so all of that. Next slide, please. All of the teachers, just so you know, in the state of California are required to have, as part of their teacher credentialing program, a CLAD credential embedded within that. In addition, teachers may go on to earn a BCLAD, or a bilingual authorization, and also a GLAD certification, which is listed there as the Guided Language Acquisition Development. Currently, our district has 17 BCLAD certified teachers, and we are also fortunate, by the way, to have successfully trained through a trainer kind of process 2 of our teachers to become GLAD certified trainers among our staff that would help us to actually do our own training for future development on those. In the classrooms, teachers are required to offer ELs additional instructional time called designated time, and that's on top of the regular integrated time in class, where teachers would then focus specifically on academic language. Generally, in the K-5 environment, our English learners would get 30 minutes a day of that designated time. However, due to the distance learning and in consultation with the state, we contacted them as well. We adjusted that to 15 minutes per day to help within our schedule, our distance learning. Our secondary grade level ELs, like I spoke of, the level 1s and 2s, receive an additional class period of ELDs, and our level 3 and 4 students are monitored throughout the year to look to make sure that they're still making academic progress, and if not, we would offer them additional support. Next slide, please. The following are the ways in which a student can earn classification. We talked a little bit about receiving that level 4 on an LPAC. We talked about parent input, which is a comparison of performance and basic skills. Bottom line for us is reclassification is the huge end goal for all of our students. And I want to kind of note that students who once reclassified actually, in the data we have, outperform most of the student groups with regard to the state testing. So it is actually really especially important that we closely work with each of our EL students and support the teachers as well to earn that reclassification, because they just seem to grab on and make that now considered bilingual, and they're great in academic performance as well and stuff. This would show you the expected progress. So some people always wonder, what is the goal? The goal is always to whatever level you've entered in at, whether or not on the LPAC assessment you came in as a beginner in level 1 or you came in as a level 4, the goal would be that you would be making 1 year's growth every year. So in essence, the process would take you 5 full years. The 6th year, you would be considered proficient if you came in at level 1 as you began. For us, we did some number crunching, and this year for our reclassified students, the average was 4.8 years to achieve proficiency, so slightly below what would be the normal track. We would be considered slightly under the 5-year, which is a success. It's a positive, and it would be 4.8 years as opposed to 5. Next slide there, please. What this chart shows on the left is the most prevalent languages among our 131 students that are reclassified this year. We're very proud to say that of those being reclassified, we have 17 languages being spoken among those 131 students being reclassified. That also, by the way, the 131 students of our nearly 1,400 students is approximately 9 to 9.5% of the total EL population that are being reclassified in this year, and that's a huge celebration as well. The chart on the right shows the number of students earning the reclassification and kind of a trend through that. I would say on the 2017-18, that 383 was because that was the last year of the CELT, and we tried to get as many through the CELT, so we were able, and the state allowed us to early, some of the students in the next class going forward. So while it looks a little higher, it's actually because we were able to kind of, in essence, do years worth of students based on and so overall, we have about 1,457 EL students who speak 32 languages. 77% of our ELs currently speak Spanish, and we are welcoming many, many more diverse languages every year. Next slide. This is a great image from this last year. These are some of the wonderful faces of success for last year's reclassification ceremony. This year's reclassification ceremony, we had to move from its normal time in October to being held virtually Wednesday, February 10th. So it's going to be coming up at 6 p.m. It'll be a virtual event. We've just mailed home their program and their certificate and their medal, and all of the teachers and their administrators will be on the thing, and we'll do a way to very much celebrate this, because as Dr. Bauer said, this is just a huge success for us, and it's always a win the more we can move students to our reclassification level, just for their benefit, and for the fact that they will just go on to be just even more successful than they were projected to be when they came in, and now they'll be able to be that much more successful based on being reclassified. So with that, I would open it up to any questions or comments.
Thank you very much. We'll begin with Trustee Wong.
I know you answered this, but there was some static, and I missed what the answer was about why in the 2017-18 school year there were so many more students reclassified.
That was a particular year where the CELT was going out and the LPAC was coming in, so you had an option to test sooner than you would have the students in the next year's grouping on the CELT, using the CELT assessment before it went away. So in essence, we were able to kind of use the spring of some and the fall of others again during that time with the CELT before it went away and was replaced by the LPAC the following year, or the following spring.
Okay, so that didn't reflect a difference in the number of students who've reached that milestone. I mean, nothing really changed except for, I don't even know how to say.
I would say that if you're looking that on average we do about 10% of our EL population every year would generally be considered for reclassification. And if you broke that out, that number, that one particular year over it, you would have found that probably also would equate to the same.
Okay.
Thank you, Trustee Wong. And we'll move to our clerk, Mrs. Prusso.
Yeah, I was just going to say congratulations to the students who reclassified. I know that that's a great accomplishment, and also just wondering if you could send us a link to the ceremony so that we could come virtually.
I do believe that was dropped off by Miss Veronica Ferrarmaya. Okay. So I will double check and make sure that gets to you. It'll be a Google link, Google Meet link.
Thank you. And now we'll move to Trustee Guzman.
Yes, I have one question. Thank you. I noticed 131 were reclassified. Is that across K-12, or do you tend to see, depending on when they enter our school system, at what grade level and newcomer, what age?
It's a great question. Primarily, our reclassifications would happen in the younger grade levels through K through 5, and even actually probably K through 2. But generally, we do see reclassifications at every grade level and usually at every school site. But the majority probably, I would say, exist at the elementary levels.
Thank you.
Thank you. And we'll move to Trustee White.
Yes, I look forward to the reclassification ceremony every year. It is by far the most upbeat, wonderful, almost short of graduation, but maybe not. Families come, aunts and uncles and grandparents come. It's a wonderful occasion, and I'm sure that you'll do your level best to recreate that upbeat situation virtually. No pressure. And I look forward to the activity on February 10th, next week.
Thanks for putting the pressure on, but I think Veronica and Vicki Scudder and Carmen Roman have done a fantastic job trying to figure out how to make something as celebratory as we can possibly do it, because this is a huge milestone in their lives.
Oh, yes. Thank you.
Thank you very much. No further questions? We have no comment cards. Thank you, Dr. Greer. Okay, if we can introduce our 9-3, please.
Certainly.
And just so everyone understands, after 9-3, we're going to take about a 10-minute recess after 9-3.
Could we actually move up 10.1 then before the break, which would be the Citizens Bond Oversight Committee, because that person is actually online.
Yes.
Waiting for that appointment. So thank you, Mr. President, for that. Hopefully that's okay with our taking notes. And so Susan Kinder, our Assistant Superintendent of Business Services, will present for your consideration and approval an appointment for our Citizens Bond Oversight Committee, the independent one.
Thank you. Good evening, President Bueno, members of the board, Superintendent Bowers. So tonight we have hopefully an appointment to our Measure J Citizens Oversight Committee. In June 2016, Measure J was passed by the Livermore electorate. And then annually, the Independent Citizens Oversight Committee reviews the expenditures and the performance audit for the bond proceeds. The eligibility is that the committee members must live within the boundaries of LVJUSD, and the term is a 2-year term. There he is. Thank you for joining us. The goals of Measure J are to repair and upgrade the district's facilities in order to ensure a safe and modern educational environment for all students. We modernize classrooms, repair aging infrastructure, renovate facilities, and add new facilities. We improve overall safety and security and increase access for individuals with disabilities. The committee's charge is to conduct meetings in accordance to the Brown Act, which means it's open to the public. Again, they review the expenditures and the performance audit of the specific budget year. So this would be for the 2021 year as well as the 21-22 year, because it's a 2-year term. And then they present a report to you by the end of the school year. And so we have Eric Hom, is that how you pronounce it?
Correct,
here.
yes.
And he would represent the business community. He also does have a student at Granada High School, and his term would go through 2022. The current board members, just so you are aware, not board members, sorry, his current committee members are Barbara Bailey, Carrie Chamberlain, Betty Cleveland, Vaughn Dragoo, James Fisher, Kevin Laylor, J. David Lopez, Isidore Loth, and Will Macedo. And the superintendent's recommendation is to approve and appoint Eric Hom as a member of the Measure J Citizens Bond Oversight Committee.
Any questions, comments? Okay. Then I would entertain a motion. This is an action item, so I would entertain a motion on this.
Mr. President, I move that we approve and appoint Eric Hom. Is that right? Did I say that right?
I think so.
As a member of the Measure J Citizens Bond Oversight Committee.
Second.
We have a motion by Ms. Prusso in support of the superintendent's recommendation. That motion has been seconded by Mrs. White. Is there any discussion on the motion? Madam Clerk, if you'd call the roll, please.
Mrs. White?
Aye.
Ms. Guzman?
Aye.
Ms. Wong?
Aye.
Myself, aye. President Bueno.
Aye. That motion carries 5-0. Congratulations, Mr. Hom. Thank you.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you for joining us.
Okay, do we want to go back to 9-3?
There's one more request. I apologize. We have 10.2, which is new course description, because there is a teacher waiting to be available to answer questions about that course.
Okay.
That's okay.
Let's do that. We'll do 9-2, and then we'll take our break.
Okay, then I will stop making suggestions to change.
Okay, so in
I
terms of
promise.
changes, we're moving up.
Okay, so
10-1 and 10-2, we'll go back to 9-3.
So we'll re-invite Dr. Kevin Greer to join us. He's our Director of Curriculum, and he'll be presenting a 9-12 new course description, which actually is a great pairing of the earlier reclassification. It's an English Language Development ELD support class. And joining Dr. Greer will be teacher Allison Noble.
There she is.
We can go to the slide. Sorry, Jeff. I think if Jeff running it, appreciate it. All right. You need to go back to one slide. Sorry. There we go. Thanks. All right, so good evening, President Bueno, members of the board, Superintendent Bowers, and members of cabinet. I'm here tonight to present a new course that supports high school English learners with their core classes. I'm also have the pleasure of having Allison Noble, one of our Granada High School finest teachers with me here as well, and I appreciate the flexibility with moving that up so she can be fresh and teaching in the morning and catch some sleep. Just as some background, our district proudly has this year in 2021 about 1,386 EL students. And our goal again is to support all of our EL students so that they can achieve that reclassification, indicating that they've mastery of the English language enough to be successful in all of their core classes. So next slide, this is our course. The ELD support class has been designed to offer assistance to our English language students so that they may be academically successful in all of their core classes, in English class, math class, history class, science class. The teachers offer help and guidance with any class assignments or projects. In addition, the teacher will provide test preparation, and furthermore, the teacher monitors each student's progress throughout the term, so in contact with those in the class and checking with their teachers of their core classes to see where they are and what kind of language academic vocabulary they could bring into their class to kind of front load or even review so that they're even better when it comes time to assessments. The class is taken during the term in addition to the core classes, so this is on top of what they would get for an English classes, or this is on top of that. And it may be repeatedly taken in any term for elective credit. The course is an excellent support or intervention for our ELDs that are classified in, like I talked about, in the LPAC level 1s and 2s. And we'll even see maybe an occasional level 3 student in those courses. And so with that, the next slide, the superintendent's recommendation would be to approve the English language development support class. And again, I have Allison Noble here, who is the curator of this course, to answer any questions or thoughts you might have about this course.
Any questions, comments? Okay.
One question.
Oh.
So,
Trustee Guzman?
yes, I noticed that the course was trying to get G approval from the UC, which is the elective. Yeah, so my question is, have other ELD courses from Livermore been approved for the elective for UC? I'm just for college requirements.
Allison, if you want to go ahead and if you know the answer to that one from a historical perspective.
Oops. Good evening, Board President Bueno, members of the board, Superintendent Bowers, and the cabinet. I believe it has been, we're actually, Livermore High and Granada, we're working together to look at the current course descriptions and moving them to be the English credit. So I believe right now they're elective credit.
And that is correct. We are looking for ELD classes, ELD 1, 2, 3, and 4, which have been on the books, to see if we can rewrite them in such a way that those at level 3 or 4 could earn them B credit on a UC A through G requirement for the English requirement to meet that requirement as well.
That would be fabulous. Thank you.
Yes, it would be. We will do our best, and we hope to bring that back to you later in May. We're having conversations with the team right now.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. No further questions? Oh, Mrs. White.
Do other districts provide this sort of support for their English learners in high school? Or are we reinventing something?
No, we do know, and we did check in with a few of our surrounding districts. Our neighbors over in Fremont, Dublin, do have a similar ELD support class, and they also have some of these other courses that they have had fortunate to get also moved to a B credit for A through G requirements as well.
Thank you.
Then I'd entertain a motion on this. It is an action item.
I move that we approve the English Language Development ELD support class as proposed by Dr. Greer.
I second that.
We have a motion by Mrs. White in support of the superintendent's recommendation, and that has been seconded by Trustee Guzman. Any discussion on the motion? Madam Clerk, if you'd call the roll, please.
Myself, aye. Ms. Wong?
Aye.
Mrs. White?
Aye.
Ms. Guzman?
Aye.
President Bueno?
Aye. The motion carries 5-0. Thank you very much. And we'll stand in recess until 22:30. All right, we're going to reconvene here, 22:30 hours, and we're going to come back with 9.3. If you could introduce that, Dr. Bowers.
Thank you. So now we are going to 9.3, and this is the governor's proposed 2021-2022 budget. And we'll ask Susan Kinder, our assistant superintendent, to present this information. Or actually, Teresa Fiskus is going to join us as well. She's our director of fiscal services. So.
There she is. Oh, Teresa's out there. Want me to do it or you?
So actually, we have our Director of Fiscal Services, Teresa Fiskus, with us, and she is going to present the governor's budget tonight.
Thank you, Mrs. Kinder. Good evening, President Bueno, members of the board, Superintendent Bowers, and Cabinet. Tonight, I am here to present information on the governor's proposed 2021-2022 state budget. Next slide, please. California's fiscal situation continues to change rapidly during the COVID-19 pandemic. In the spring of 2020, we had an abrupt and massive impact to the economy. The economic impact of the pandemic has been unequal, hitting middle to low income families much harder, especially those in the food and leisure industries. The state's general fund revenues are, however, mainly dependent on personal income taxes collected from our highest income earners and capital gains, therefore resulting in a much quicker recovery to our economy than was expected. Next slide, please. On the education side of the budget, the major K-12 proposals are summarized here. The governor has proposed $2.2 billion for COLA, which equates to a 3.84 compounded COLA for the local control funding formula, and a 1.5 COLA for some of our standalone categorical programs. $7.3 billion was set aside to pay down most of the cash deferrals for the 2021-22 fiscal year. $2 billion was set aside for the in-person instruction grant, and $300 million was set aside for the special ed preschool early intervention grant. On this slide, we show our district's standalone categorical programs. On the left side of the chart, you will see our ongoing state programs that will receive no COLA. That is our after-school education and safety program, our CTE incentive grant and K-12 strong workforce grant that we received through the Tri-Valley ROP, and our agricultural education incentive program. On the right side, you will see our ongoing state programs that will receive the 1.5% COLA. This is our special education program, child nutrition, our adult education block grant, and the mandated cost block grant. In the prior year budget, the 2020 Budget Act, the governor included approximately $11 billion in K-12 cash deferrals to affect us in the 2021 and the 21-22 fiscal years. Governor Newsom is now proposing to eliminate most of the 21-22 deferrals with this budget proposal. The current proposal will leave one remaining deferral for the 21-22 fiscal year, deferring cash from June of 2022 to July of 2022, which will cross our fiscal years. For the current year, the cash deferrals are still in place, and beginning this month, February 2021, is when they will start to happen. We are currently in the process of issuing a tax revenue anticipation note, commonly referred to as a TRAN, to cover this cash shortfall. The governor is also proposing $2 billion in one-time funding to support a grant program that provide additional resources for school districts to offer safe in-person instruction. This funding is proposed to go out on a per pupil basis, providing approximately $450 per student for a February reopening or $338 per student for a March opening. Several conditions must be met for school districts to receive this funding. Our district is currently in the process of working to meet these conditions and positioning ourselves to receive this funding if it becomes available. Special education, as I stated earlier, will receive the 1.5% COLA, which will be added to our AB 602 base funding model. The estimated increase will equate to $9.38 for ADA, which stands for our average daily attendance, which is where the majority of our revenue comes from. In addition, the governor is once again proposing the early intervention preschool grant. The good news this year, though, is that now he is finally proposing it to be an ongoing funding source. In the previous year, it was brought as a one-time grant. This funding is based on the number of preschoolers with disabilities, and it's estimated at a per pupil rate of $5,900 per child, projected at $802,400 in revenue for the Livermore School District. There was no change to the governor's proposal for the school employer contribution rates based on this year's budget. So in the prior year budget act, the governor had reduced the CalPERS and CalSTRS contribution rates for the 2020-21 school year, as well as the 2021-22 school year. Those reductions are still in place and are shown below in this chart. I wanted to remind you that those rate decreases were also included in the first interim report that was presented to the board in the December, since we were aware of them at that time. Our next steps are to begin updating our budget assumptions based on the information provided in the governor's budget proposal, as well as any direction given from the board at the board budget workshop that will be held later this month in February. We will prepare our second interim report using these updated assumptions and bring it to the board in March for approval. We will continue planning for our 2021-2022 local control accountability plan, and we will attend the governor's May Revise workshop presented by School Services of California in May. With that, I am happy to answer any questions you may have on the governor's proposal for the 2021-2022 state budget.
Okay. Trustee Guzman. Okay.
Ms. Fiskus, I had one clarifying question. Can you just clarify the status of the, I know it was a proposal, but of this recent funding that was supposed to be available for the extra funding for the COVID plan that the governor had proposed?
We are hearing at this time that it is not likely to happen, that it is being rejected, and we are expecting to hear more information on that from the county office tomorrow afternoon, but at this time we are hearing it is very, very unlikely that in-person grant proposal will remain in the budget at this time.
Thank you. We have Mrs. White.
Yes, I'm looking forward to the budget workshop when you'll actually know how much money you're expecting from Sacramento to come to Livermore. You know, millions and billions is interesting, but we need to know what we're going to get, and we look forward to that at the budget workshop.
Thank you, Ms. White. Maybe a question that you can answer here. You mentioned under the early intervention grant, the preschool, that would, if I heard it correctly, that's going to be recurring? And okay, so, and if so, maybe some of the thinking behind it, and does it get us much closer to closing that gap?
I'm not sure what the governor's thinking behind the proposal was, but I can say that as a school district, our district, we are extremely grateful for this thinking. We have been running an extremely robust preschool program for our special education children that was unfunded prior to this grant. So that was a further impact to our general fund since the state wasn't helping us cover those costs. last year, it was extremely helpful to receive the one-time grant that was able to help offset those costs that were already incurred in our budget. So going forward, it's extremely important for us as a district that that revenue will continue, because it can help us continue our extremely robust preschool program and will help us not have to make any cuts down the line.
Thank you. I appreciate that detail on that. I know that's been a long ongoing effort by us and other school districts, so thank you. Any other questions? Any clarifications? Okay, thank you very much. Nicely done. And now we're going to go back. If you'd introduce 10-3, please.
Thank you, Mr. President. Now I'll ask Mrs. Kim McNeely, our Bond Program Director, to present for board consideration and approval the educational furniture vendor guaranteed maximum price.
Thank you. It took just a minute there to get me in place, I guess. President Bueno, members of the board, Superintendent Bowers and Cabinet, staff is here this evening requesting approval of a furniture purchase contract for East Avenue Middle School and Mitchell K-8 School. Next slide, please. The new classroom buildings that we are constructing at both Mitchell and East Avenue have created an opportunity for us as a district to really review our middle school furniture standards. And we've taken that opportunity and we're looking forward to exploring some updated options for us as a district. Piloting will allow our district to consider updated standards for standard classrooms, for science classrooms, and for maker spaces at our middle schools. We can potentially use these updated standards at other sites as funds become available in the future for us. Next slide, please. The board may recall that you approved an educational furniture pilot vendor in last October 2020, and a pilot committee was formed shortly thereafter to review classroom furniture options with the goal to evaluate those options for these new projects and for the district to consider them, as I said, for other projects in the future. Next slide, please. Our committee had 5 meetings, and our committee members included teachers, principals, our purchasing director, our director of maintenance operations and facilities, and our deputy superintendent. And the committee meeting summary included a review of our current furniture standards and looking at the pros and cons of what we're currently using. We explored updated furniture options. We reviewed sample furniture, and there was an associated survey that went with that in-person furniture evaluation. And then we also, as a committee, reviewed the survey results to see the collective wisdom of our group. Our final committee meeting was a review of the order recommendation for which we are requesting approval this evening. Next slide, please. The superintendent's recommendation is that our Board of Trustees approve the educational furniture vendor guaranteed maximum price for East Avenue Middle School and Joe Mitchell K-8 School. That concludes my presentation, but I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. We'll start with Trustee Prusso.
Not really a question. I just wanted to say I'm excited that we're going to be able to do this. I think having new facilities and then putting old furniture into it isn't very fun. So also excited to see what kind of furniture the committee has chosen, and I'm sure it's going to be exciting and modern, and I'm hopeful that our students and teachers will love it when they get back to school. So thank you.
Thank you very much. And also along that line of a comment, it's quite often that, without good planning, that, folks will put up a new building, a new facility, and then fill it with a lot of things that might be old and outdated. So I welcome the piloting of this because it is part of that whole transformation. And when these kids do come back, they're going to see something great. And it's a different way. And so I welcome it. And thanks for all the work. I looked at some of the detail on some of the types of chairs and ottomans and things like that. It's just for a different configuration in classrooms. So nicely done. Thanks for collaborating with everyone. This is an action item. If there's no further questions, I'd entertain a motion on this.
I'll second.
We have a motion by Mrs. White in support of the superintendent's recommendation on this item. That has been seconded by Trustee Prusso. Any comments on the motion? Madam Clerk, if you'd call the roll.
Ms. Guzman?
Aye.
Oh, I'm not sure who's.
It does sound like this. Ms. Wong?
Aye.
Mrs. White? Aye. Myself, aye. President Bueno?
Aye, and that motion carries 5-0. Thank you very much, and thanks for the continued work on all this bond stuff. Great work out there.
For our next item, I'll ask Mr. Chris Venchak, our Deputy Superintendent, to provide an overview of a recommended contract.
Thank you, Dr. Bowers. A very brief but very important item that I will be presenting to the board. It is the approval of an employment contract for our Assistant Superintendent of Educational Services. This is a position, one of a few positions in our district that does require board authorization. The superintendent, the assistant superintendents, deputy superintendent, those all require action in a regular board meeting. The position is currently being filled by the esteemed gentleman to my left, Mr. Odie Douglas, Dr. Odie Douglas. And this contract is for Melissa Thiede, currently our Director of Human Resources, who will move to Educational Services. This item involves the board discussion and recommended approval of a contract for employment between the district and the Assistant Superintendent of Educational Services. The proposed contract contains the following material terms: a term of 3 years, beginning July 1st, 2021, a salary of 3/5 for the term of January 1st through June 30th, 2021, of $65,261, increasing to the full rate of $196,676. That's $196,676 for 2021-2022. This rate will be increased upon satisfactory evaluation by 2.5% annually after a full year of service for a maximum of 5 years. The position is entitled to an annual stipend of $1,100 for a master's degree, and the Assistant Superintendent of Educational Services will also receive the same health and welfare benefits as provided to other members of the Livermore Management Association. And the superintendent's recommendation is to approve the employment agreement between the Livermore Valley Joint Unified School District and the Assistant Superintendent of Educational Services, Melissa Thiede.
Thank you. Trustee Prusso?
Yeah, I just wanted to say thank you to all of you for filling in for Dr. Douglas for coming on board with us temporarily. We've been really appreciative of the work that he's done, and I know that the filling in that's had to happen this year, in addition to everything else, has been difficult, and I'm grateful that we have the opportunity to bring Melissa on board. I think she's going to be great. She's been fantastic in all of my dealings with her, and I think she'll be a great addition to the team. So I'm fully supportive of this.
Thank you. Just another comment in support of it. Mrs. Thiede's done a really nice job here. I know she's in pursuit of a doctorate right now. Dr. Douglas, I mean, you stepping in at a time like this is a very, very lean district in terms of its administrative arm. And so, you know, untimely passing of our assistant and a district in need and a world in chaos. So one of the things that we as a board, not maybe this rendition of the board, but a prior rendition of the board, asked the superintendent was to build depth on the bench. So in a healthy organization, you have that depth. And this is a sign of a healthy organization when you can take someone from the inside and move them to another position within the organization and move forward stronger than you were. So thank you for what you've done so far. Please stay with us and continue to help us out. And best wishes to Mrs. Thiede and this next step in her career. If there's no further questions, I would entertain a motion on this, as Mr. Venchak said, important item.
I will
Um,
attempt to make sure I say this correctly. I motion to approve the employment contract for the Assistant Superintendent of Educational Services. Right?
Yes.
And I'll second.
We have a motion by Trustee Guzman in support of the superintendent's recommendation, and that has been seconded by Trustee Prusso. Is there any discussion on the motion? Madam Clerk, if you'd call the roll on this, please.
Ms. Wong.
Aye.
Myself, aye. Mrs. White. Ms. Guzman.
Aye.
President Bueno.
Aye. That motion carries 5-0. Thank you very much.
Outstanding.
For our next item, I ask our Deputy
I'll continue
Superintendent, Mr. Chris Van Schack, to present this also. And it's a first reading of a parent involvement policy.
Thank you again. Another very brief but also very important item, and this is a board policy begun by Mr. Scott Vernoy, Director of Student Services, and handed off to Mr. Darrell Villa, the current Director of Student Services. This is from Board Policy Series 6000. It was posted on January the 14th, and the first reading is this evening. This is essentially an update of a board policy administrative regulation that revolves around parent involvement. And there are a couple of significant additions. Many of these things are things that are already practices in our district, but this codifies practices and puts them into either the board policy or moves items from the administrative regulation into the board policy. So again, adds a requirement to inform parents and guardians through a number of different ways of the existence of the program. Make sure that the superintendent is working with parents and guardians and family members to develop and agree upon policies and strategies, which again, these are things that we've done in practice, but now we are codifying them and putting them into board policy, which I think is always a great thing to do, to formalize things that we've done. This really revolves around, again, parent involvement in the LCAP process, ensuring that the district is accountable to the parents and the community. And this, again, puts practices in place whereby we inform parents of the things that are going on and encourages and actually requires us to involve parents in the decision-making process. Superintendent's recommendation would be to approve this first reading of this board policy and give us an opportunity to make any adjustments as necessary and bring it back for a second and final reading.
Thank you. Just a clarifying question. Is there anything that we anticipate changing between now and a final on this? In other words, could we move it up? Or is there some further amendments we'd like to make and make this second and final? Unless there's something else or more input. If this is practice, perhaps we can just make this second and final read?
We were told in the policy committee meeting that this was codifying what we already do by federal law, and that the staff was already on board to do what they already have been doing, which is included in this. So don't really anticipate any change from what we're doing.
Okay. Yeah,
that said, I think it's entirely appropriate to pass this through as the second reading if the board is so inclined.
Okay. So this is an action item. So with that in mind, I would simply amend the superintendent's recommendation and move this to be second and final, approved as board policy 6020, parent involvement.
Yeah.
I'll second. Did you get?
So motion Bueno, second Prusso. Any discussion on the motion? Madam Clerk, if you'd call the roll, please. Yeah.
Mrs. White?
Aye.
Ms. Guzman?
Aye.
Myself, aye. Ms. Wong?
Aye.
Mr. Bueno?
Motion carries.
I've got you.
I'm sorry. Motion carries 5-0. Thank you very much. Okay, we're moving into our consent items, section 11. Is there anything anyone wants to remove separately? Otherwise, I'd entertain a motion to move them in their entirety. I believe there's 7, 11.2 through 11.8.
I don't have any. Mr. President, I move that we approve consent items 11.2 through 11.8.
I second that.
We have a motion to move all consent items in their entirety by Trustee Prusso. It's been seconded by Trustee Guzman. Any discussion? Madam Clerk, if you'd call the roll, please.
Myself, aye. Ms. Wong?
Aye.
Mrs. White? Aye. Ms. Guzman?
Aye.
President Bueno?
Aye. That carries 5-0. Moving on to consent resos, I believe that we have 7. Yes, 126 through 132. So I'd unless we want to pull anything, then I'd entertain a motion to move 126 through 132 on the resos.
Okay. Mr. President, I move that we approve consent items 126 through 132. 132. I'll sound
Yes,
more.
that's correct.
Okay.
I second that.
We have a motion by Mrs. Prusso in support of moving consent resos 126. There's our 2021 through 132 of 2021. That motion's been seconded by Trustee Guzman. And if there's no further discussion, Madam Clerk, if you'd call the roll on this.
Ms. Guzman?
Aye.
Ms. Wong?
Aye.
Mrs. White? Myself, aye. President Bueno?
Aye, and that motion carries 5-0. Thank you all. And we'll go in our board member reports. We'll start with Mrs. Wong this evening, and then we'll move to Mrs. Prusso.
We're on board.
Yes, you're up.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
I just want to start by congratulating the IB team at Joe Mitchell for their, they recently received their 5-year evaluation, and they got 23 commendations, which is apparently very rare and difficult. I also last week had the pleasure of sitting down with Principal Lembo virtually. And it's great and exciting to hear about the school and what they're doing and the new construction. It's a great time at Joe Mitchell, so big congratulations to them and thank them for their hard work. I think this was last week, yeah, with the Pedroza Young Scholar function last week was terrific. One of the worst parts of joining the board during the pandemic is we don't get to see students. And so, you know, in the past couple of weeks, I had a chance to attend the Maryland Avenue Spelling Bee and the Pedroza Young Scholar event, and finally got to see some kids' faces, and it's so great. I just can't wait to be able to see them in person in their classrooms. And then I just want to end by thanking our district leadership and our principals, our teachers, our staff, everybody for your hard work to keep things going at this time and to give our students as much of what they would be getting in school. And in particular, I think it was, I get my dates are all mixed up. I think it was last week that they took the PSAT. I should know this, my daughter took it, but we had called around the fall trying to figure out where she could take one, and nobody was giving them. And so I'm very grateful that our district did what it needed to do to provide that test and make it available to Livermore students. And that's the kind of effort and attitude that I really appreciate in this district, and the way that my son got to have an amazing graduation last June. And it's why I feel positive and optimistic about us doing everything we can to reopen our schools. If there's a way, we will find it. So I just really appreciate that, and thank Dr. Bowers for her leadership.
Thank you, Trustee Wong. We'll move to our clerk, Mrs. Prusso.
Thank you. I just have something just small to report. The ROP board met last week, and we accepted the audit report, which got a positive certification. And I just wanted to do a shout out to Teresa Fiscus, who had a lot of praise. Our auditors had a lot of praise to her for her handling of the finances there. And then also just a reminder that we celebrate Career Technical Education Month this month, and there's various activities planned that you can get information on the TVROP website. And then also just a reminder, I think Ms. Esposito also mentioned this in her report from Livermore High, that middle college is beginning its application process. Tomorrow and Thursday, they're having information nights for sophomores and their parents. The meetings are from 6 to 7, and the Zoom links can be found at the TVROP website, or you could ask your VP or counselor. And I just want to encourage sophomores and their families to look into the middle college program and see if it's something that would be a fit for your student. It's a really wonderful program, and it's just sort of a unique opportunity, and maybe a good fit for many students. So it's just another thing that we have going for us with the other districts in the Tri-Valley that we work together on, and I think it's just really an amazing program. So that's my report.
Thank you, Ms. Pruso. We'll move to Trustee White.
Yes, I attended the school services workshop recently, the budget workshop, and look forward to hearing the translation to what it means to Livermore when we have our budget workshop. I attended the reopening task force meeting, and I look forward to the reclassification event next week and the beam signing for Livermore High School, which is sooner than, isn't it? Tomorrow, isn't it? Yes. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. White. Trustee Guzman.
Yes, thank you. So first of all, I'd like to give a big thank you out to the parent community for recommending a forum where we hear input, and that led to leadership or Livermore Live. I want to thank the leadership, PCIC, for hosting that. The response, there was a lot of engagement, and I appreciated the questions that were coming in the chat and the live response that took. From what I understand, a lot of people watched the recording just as I did, and so hopefully we were getting, that was at a request, again, for more transparency of what's actually happening. So thank all of you. In addition, I was able to attend a spelling bee for Lawrence Elementary, 5th grade. And again, I want to thank the teachers, Ms. Waffler, Mr. Huberman, Ms. Sawada, for doing all that they can to try and keep tradition alive, even though we're not at a traditional school site. And it was the first time, like you mentioned, Trustee Wong, the first time that I was able to see other students other than my own, and seeing them smile. They're not covered in a mask when you go outside, but seeing them smile while they're spelling these words and cheering them on. They do like spirit fingers. So that was great to be a part of. I attended the reopening task force 2 weeks ago, and again, just we're moving forward. And I want to put it out there. It's a very complex situation, a lot of moving parts, and to think about everything logistically so that we could bring everyone back safely. That is at the forefront of our conversations with everyone. So thank you all.
Thank you very much. I was able to attend a few of the things, these Zooms. One thing I'm impressed by, and I had a conversation with my fellow trustees on this, was, and I've said it before, but when you watch some of the kids, I was on one of them this week, and there were some of the kids that were concerned with Wednesday schedules and things like that. And one thing that just kind of resonates with me, maybe because I'm a little bit older, even though I was raised around here, I just think that some of the kids, in general, the kids today, they're just better people. They're better people than what I grew up with. They're articulate. They reflect. They hear answers that are contrary to what their own opinion is, and they consider it. They can change their mind. They're really good at it. And they came with concerns, they voiced it, they're respectful, but they're open with their opinion, and they consider other people's point of view. And that's a reflection not just on our community and our schools, but on them as individuals. And to me, it's very encouraging going forward, knowing that the people that we're going to pass things off to are of that quality of human beings. And that's why we're all here. I mean, the goal of this district is to educate children and give them opportunity to thrive. And I think this district's doing an outstanding job doing that, even under these extraordinary circumstances that aren't just here. I think too often we hear how other people are doing it and everyone else is doing it better. This is a worldwide pandemic. There's nowhere else I'd rather be than in this country, despite all the issues we might have going on. And we are particularly benefited by the efforts of this district. And I'm not looking for praise for our folks, but I'm looking for folks to understand that there's a lot of concerted effort going for the benefit of these children, and these kids are really good, despite our struggles. So I'm going to continue to advocate for the kids of this district. I really understand the stability and the value of stability in a community. I mean, it's the very foundation that we build everything upon. So I know there's been comments about, when we'll put kids back, and we're going to do everything we can. I think that this district has positioned itself well, and it's ongoing. It's literally daily. As staff is moving and things have happened, there's a concerted effort every single day, daily briefings, Zoom meetings, in-person meetings, site visitations, trying to get this going. People working way outside the spectrum of what they normally do to make things happen. So my personal opinion, I don't care if there's 2 weeks left. I understand the stability and keeping continuity, and we're going to do that, and that's what's happening. But my personal opinion is if we have the opportunity to put kids back in school and get them in their school and let them go and see some of the grand things that have happened, and they get to do that, then so be it. That's the way I'm going to support it. I think we're positioned where there's not going to be a stall. We're going to be able to pivot to maintain being nimble throughout this procedure while positioning yourself is a very difficult piece. But I think the district's doing a good job of doing it and keeping us there. So I think that my ask of the community, and I say this almost every meeting, is we have to stay together. And that's just not in our words. One of the trustees mentioned, people say, I love my teacher, and then there's a but. I think that our practice has to be to stay together. There's a lot of things that go on in this society. I mean, the racial injustice, there's all kinds of things, political polarization, in this darn pandemic that's just devastating people's lives. You have to stay together. That's the value in this country. That's why this country has always prospered and pulled out of things, is the ability to stay together. And you couple that, with a little bit of tolerance, I think we're going to get there. And then to do the simple things that we can all do. It doesn't require anything to put on a mask. And that's one of the things that's great about living here, is you have a high acceptance of that. And most people out here are going to wear them, and I think everyone should be wearing it. And let's get through this thing. Let's advocate for the vaccines, especially with those people who have been supportive of public education, public safety, at our Board of Supervisors, and give them the opportunity to redirect priorities so that we can get our teachers and our staff vaccinated. And let's keep moving forward. I stand in support of them, and my number one priority right now is getting these kids back. Dr. Bowers?
Thank you. So in light of the hour and my asthma, I'm going to keep it short, which you guys will be surprised by. And so I will just say ditto to everything that our board said in their comments, because you covered it all and said it really well. And then I'll always end with, let's stay hopeful and positive. And as always, stay safe, be well, and stay #Livermore School District strong.
Thank you. All right, it's 11:09, and we are going to adjourn.
Hi, I'm Marshall Quina. Please join me for a